Good evening, friends. Welcome to our discussion on offences and penalties. This evening, virtual classes, coaching class organized by Board of Studies, ICI, Paper 8, Indirect Tax Laws. So this is a discussion in continuation to our previous session, which held on 28th of this month. So today we are going to continue our discussion with this topic on offence and penalties. So, hope you have done a recap of our previous session on offence and penalty, where we have understood section 122 in detail, where we have understood there are 21 offences under section 122. So this particular screen, hope you are able to see my screen, where we have discussed at length when an officer can identify that an offence has been committed under section 122, which can be attributed to any of these four buckets which is there in front of us. One deals with your procedural lapse, second deals with your fraud, suppression of facts or misrepresentation, third aspect dealing with your registration non-payment, and fourth with the non-payment of tax. So we have seen the 21 list of offences where in detail we have covered with one example in this regard also. So hope you have gone through that Excel file what we have discussed the other day, and I would recommend to keep that particular Excel file in handy so that we can discuss further on a couple of problems set from this chapter called penalty, offences and penalty. And last session, if you recollect, we have started with a discussion on this topic called general disciplines related to penalty. This is a topic where we stop our discussion. I would like to start with this particular chapter and then we'll go further to understand. And any doubts you have in relation to the previous session or any other sessions, you can post into the question window so that we can take it up one by one in relation to this topic. And I would recommend look at this chapter as not a theory chapter. Look at this chapter as a value addition. Why a value addition? We are as a professional, we are going to give a value addition to the assessee with respect to exposure by virtue of a penalty. As you are aware, if I pay interest or penalty, there is a disallowance under income tax law. I'm not going to pay a penalty of a small amount. You would have seen that under section 122, the penalty was quantified at a sum of rupees 10,000 or equivalent to the tax evaded. So the amount of penalty under this particular chapter is a quite heavy amount. So from that particular backdrop, I would recommend all of you to look at how a value addition can be made to the assessee. Now coming further, this section 126, which talks about your general disciplines in relation to penalty. What an officer has to keep in mind. What an officer has to keep in mind for the purpose of application of the penal provisions. So last class we have discussed with this particular topic where we say there cannot be a penalty imposed for minor breaches or procedural requirements, regulations of procedural requirements. If you recollect the last session, we have taken one example where a tax invoice has been issued by a registered taxable person, where in the tax invoice per unit there was an amount of 5,000. In the quantity column, instead of mentioning 10 quantity, it was mentioned as 01, and the value column it was properly written as 50,000, 50. So if you see that particular invoice, section 122, if you see, there was a tax invoice issued where there was a false information. But by applying by virtue of this section 126, if I read together, where officer says under section 122, look, you have issued a false invoice. Let me levy a penalty under section 122. But 126 clearly says, look, wherever there is a procedural lapses, which is easily rectifiable, in that particular scenario, let there not be a levy of penalty. Where my intent of fraud does not exist. I repeat, my intent of fraud does not exist. So even if the officer looks into tax invoice and says, gentlemen, you have prepared a wrong tax invoice, we have an argument to say that My lord, officer concerned, look, I have prepared an invoice where there is no intent to do any modified activity. It was a clerical error. Instead of writing 10, I have written as 01. If you look at the taxable value, tax rate, and tax applied, place of supply, everything is correct. So applying these principles under section 126, what we can do, we can plead to the authority concerned that please waive off the penalty which you would like to impose under section 122. So from that backdrop, it is of very important for us to understand. I'll give one more example. Last session, you have read the provisions under e-way bill under Rule 138. Now, what if there is a consignment which is being dispatched from, say, Maharashtra to the state of Tamil Nadu? This registered person has issued a tax invoice, has prepared e-way bill, all the particulars in the e-way bill were updated. When it comes to the tax, the part B in the e-way bill, there I have to mention the vehicle number TN7024. TN7024. Erroneously, while typing, instead of 7024, he has entered as 7042. There was a typographical error. Using that particular thing, we have to say, look, in the tax invoice, my vehicle number 7024 is proper. Only mistake happened is when I am updating this, it was a typographical error. 70 is there, 24 has become 42 or vice versa. This is one point of connection where we have to say, look, for movement of goods, tax invoice required, it is there. Details of tax invoice should be proper, it is improper. My tax should have been discharged. I am going to discharge while filing my return. What is the issue there? I have entered a vehicle number which is wrong. Was there an intent to fraudulent intent? I would say no. So taking a shelter under 126, there is a possibility to plead the officer concerned that this is a minor breach where there is no intent exists. Accordingly, the levy of penalty, any other provision can be condoned. This is what we have to understand from section 126. Moving further, 126 says that, look, the penalty imposed under this act shall depend on the facts and circumstances of each case. Now, when we talk about facts and circumstances, we need to keep in mind that all the cases cannot be looked in the same magnified lens. We will take an example. Say a tax officer conducts an audit of an assessee having a turnover of 500 crores. The same tax officer conducts an audit of an assessee having a turnover of, say, 35 lakhs. 500 crores, one assessee, 35 lakhs, another assessee. Both the cases, there is one lacuna in the procedural complaints. What is that? As a part of registration activity, I am supposed to display my name board having a GST number. There is an offense where if you don't display your name board with the GST number quoted on that, it is a procedural lacuna. The penalty under for that, we invoke this section 125, a general penalty, 25,000, 25,000, 50,000 penalty. Now, we have to say, my lord, look at the magnitude of error, look at the assessee who has complied, deviated with the law. You cannot compare an assessee having a turnover of 500 crores with an assessee of 35 crores to put them at par in terms of imposing a penal provision. You should look into the circumstances and the position of the assessee where the knowledge exists in relation to compliance with the law. So here they also say degree and severity of the breach. Now there could be a pleading activity which can be invoked using my section 126 for these kind of minor breaches. Further, without giving an opportunity, there cannot be any penalty which can be imposed. And also they say, look, whenever you are imposing a penalty, it is your obligation to say, was this a violation under state GST law, central GST law or IGST law? Under what particular rule or a section this particular violation has occurred? And those details, unless it is put forth, you cannot levy a penalty. Next. This point number 5, I draw your attention to my previous session also, where we have discussed this particular point number 5, where we said that this particular voluntary disclosure, that is how we try to mitigate, how we try to reduce the exposure, of the assessee concerned as a professional chartered accountant. We try to give a advice, proper advice, where the magnitude of the exposure can be reduced. This is one valid point which we have to always keep in mind. When a person voluntarily, when I say person, now this term person indicates, could be a taxable person, could be a non-taxable person, could be a registered person, could be a non-registered person, could be a person liable to register. Everything gets covered under this particular thing. When a person voluntarily discloses, this particular person has come forward, how voluntarily, to an officer under this act, the circumstances of a breach of law, regulation or procedural requirement prior to the discovery of the breach by the officer. The proper officer may consider this fact as a mitigating factor when quantifying a penalty for that person. So what they are trying to say, look, there was a violation. Now let me take a cognizance of the situation. Let me take this particular disclosure of an assessee into consideration before I quantify a particular penal provision. Why so? Before I, as a tax officer, have come for inspection or for an audit, the assessee having done a mistake, a breach or a violation, he voluntarily has come forward and disclosed that, look, this is what the mistake I have done. Most of the cases, friends, when you do an audit, could be your internal audit, could be your statutory audit, could be your GST assignment. Most of the cases when we do this purchases vouching, we would have seen that the value as per the invoice and the value as per the accounting entry, there could be a variance, or there could be a scenario where the supplier has forgotten to quote the GST number, supplier has quoted a wrong GST, or there is a defect in the document. Now what will happen in the process of audit? You will quantify a few instances and say, in these cases, your input tax credit is ineligible because this is not in compliance with your Rule 36, read with your Section 16. So those cases, what you can do, you can make a recommendation, write a letter to your range office, and also if you have availed any tax wrongly, you make the payment of tax along with corresponding interest so that your exposure on account of penal provisions can be mitigated. I'll come to your section 122 too, when we were talking about input tax availment, etc., availed or utilized, where they say my tax, my penal provision shall be tax amount 10,000 or 10% of tax amount if there is no intent to evade payment of tax. Now, how do you establish the officer that I don't have a intention to evade payment of tax? This is one point which comes into your rescue, saying that whatever mistakes have happened, where I can do the rectification, let us do the prakshalana, where I'll write to the respective range office communicating that this is a mistake happened. This is what section 126(5) comes into picture. There is one question from Ambika. Layman who does not have GST knowledge, even if he unknowingly aids in section 21 offences, then also is considered as a committed offences. Valid question, Ambika. I don't say it is taken out. Now, there is one question from one of our friend saying that, sir, what if there is a layman? This layman doesn't know that he is helping an assessee, or he's aiding, like he's helping an assessee where there is a invoking of penal provisions under section 121. There, can an officer come and hold of this assessee under section 122? If you recollect section 122 subsection 3, where even a person who is not registered under the GST law, I repeat, section 122 subsection 3, where a person who is not registered under the GST law can also be held responsible. Where we took one example where I go to a shop to buy a air conditioner, 50,000 is the cost of air conditioner, 9,000 is GST. We have encouraged the shop person to sell the air conditioner without a tax invoice, where tax itself has not been collected, and that gentleman also has not issued a tax invoice. So the question comes here is, without knowing the knowledge of the law, without knowing that this is an offense, can that particular layman be punished under this particular law? Answer to your question, Ambika, definitely a big yes, and I draw attention of all of you who are listening to me. When you look into the taxation, when you look into the direct tax or indirect tax, there are many advertisements, there are many flyers where the government of India comes forward to bring awareness to the assessee, where you can hear on radio, television, and also newspapers saying that don't entertain any mischievous, fraudulent activity. Please purchase the goods with a proper, genuine dealer or a vendor who has been registered under GST. If a person is not registered, probably because of the threshold limit, you have to have a basic awareness when you are helping out someone with this kind of violations. Answer to your question, Ambika, yes. Though he is a layman, if he is helping out a person in terms of any of the violations laid down under GST law, officer has a right to recover that particular tax from a layman. Going further, friends, clause 6. Provisions of this section shall not apply in such cases where penalty specified under this act is either a fixed sum or expressed as a percentage. Now, this provision says, look, wherever there are provisions where the penalty is quantified as a fixed amount or which is quantified as a percentage, I don't have any mitigating provision under section 126 where I can waive off the penalty. Provisions under this section shall not apply in such cases where penalty is specified as a fixed sum. Now, example, yesterday we read about section 122, 123, where we were talking about statistical information. We travel to your section furnishing of information written under section 150, where we have discussed that there is a person who is supposed to give information when called by a commissioner under 150. So that particular scenario where 5,000 is the standard amount fixed, those cases my section 126 does not get applied. That is what they're trying to clarify. Next, 127. 127 is to impose a penalty. This is one particular section where it peeps in or it takes authority to peep into a couple of other provisions where there is an assessment or audit done. Penalty has not been imposed under any of those provisions. So this provision says that where proper officer of the view that a person is liable to penalty and the same is not covered. Now, a person is liable for penalty, but what happened? It is not covered where under any of the proceedings, by virtue of any of the proceedings, like under section 62, as assessment of non-filer, section 63, assessment of unregistered person, 64, which is a summary assessment. Now, three sessions prior to this, we have studied all these particular aspects where a person was defaulted in filing returns or continuously for more than 3 months he has not filed his returns, etc. Those cases, if at all, if there was any recovery mechanism where penalty has not been levied, then 127 comes into picture and says, I will levy a penalty under those particular provisions as a mitigating factor. Now, because it was not covered under those assessment provisions, the levy to penalty, I'll invoke section 127 to levy a nominal penalty under section 125. These are the other sections, section 73, 74, 129, 130. 73, 74, we have discussed last session and last to last previous session. 129, 130, very, very important provisions. Wait for 10 to 15 minutes, we'll cover on this particular 129 and 130. Now, 127 further, yeah. It says that this authority, a proper officer may issue an order levying a penalty after giving an opportunity of being heard. Before we go further, friends, I would request you to open the Excel file which I have shared you the other day. Let us look into a couple of examples which have been set under the backdrop of section 126. Probably examination, one question we can expect under this particular backdrop. There is one problem, problem B. Hope you have made an attempt to solve this problem. This problem B has been set in the backdrop of your section 122. Now, any of you who have downloaded this Excel file and made an attempt, you have any doubts in this problem A or problem B, you can raise your questions. I'll try to answer those questions. There's one question from Kamlesh. What is the difference between subsection 1 and which section, Kamlesh? Is it 122 or 126? Kamlesh has a question. You elaborate your question under which section, Kamlesh, so that I'll answer your question. So friends, let's come to our example. This particular example problem B, which is there in front of you. Examine the penalty applicable under the GST law. Again, friends, whenever I say GST law, please keep in mind it is either CGST law or SGST law. It could be a central GST or it could be a state GST. In general, I have used a term called GST law for convenience, but it is a CGST Act or SGST Act. Examine the penalty applicable under GST law for the below transactions noted by Mrs. AP and Co., a firm of chartered accountant. Mrs. AB and Co. are appointed under Section 66 of the CGST Act for the period April 20 to March 20. Assessor's name is Bablu and Co. So friends, what happened? This is a case where a special audit has been conducted. A chartered accountant firm has been appointed for conducting an audit under GST law. Assessor name is Mrs. Bablu and Co. Registration has been applied on 15th June instead of applying on 1st April. So friends, I draw your attention to section 122, section 22, where there is a provisions under GST law to get registered under the GST law. Now, when we travel to section 122, there are 4 buckets. My second bucket talks about your fraud, third bucket talks about your registration. Because there is a violation which is coming under third bucket, registration, a penalty of 10,000 or tax involved, whichever is higher, tax evaded. Now here, tax evaded is not there. So in that scenario, under section 122, my penalty of 10,000 will be applicable. So this is answer for my first violation. Next. Little important and interesting, if you look into this example number 2. Closing stock as per financial records on 31st December amounts to 12 lakhs and a statement provided to bank for the working capital limits indicated a stock value of 20 lakhs. Now, in the process of audit, this chartered accountant got to lay hands on the details which were furnished to the bank. As a process of our working capital arrangement or banking arrangements, we give a stock statements on a monthly basis or a periodical basis to my bank. So in one of the communication, this chartered accountant happened to see that there was 12 lakhs available as per books, 20 lakhs which was given to the bank as my stock value for the collateral security what I have obtained from the bank. Now, can this be an offense? Can this be an offense? And if so, can there be levy of penalty under GST law? Now, always keep in mind when these kind of differences do come into picture, the benefit of doubt always lie towards the revenue until and unless the assessee proves that this is a genuine clerical error which is rectifiable. I repeat, drawing attention to 126 clause 1. If I can prove that, sir, it is a clerical error, it is not an intention to evade payment of tax, then I can mitigate my penal exposure. If not, benefit of doubt will be given to the revenue, where he will say your 20 lakhs minus 12 lakhs, a sum of 8 lakhs on which you have not paid tax. Assuming for a moment the rate of tax is 12%. So what will happen on this entire 8 lakhs, 12% shall be recovered as a tax and also interest and also a penalty. This is what the proper officer will take it on record when there is a deviation discrepancy. Probably a question can be asked, sir, as per section 35 books of accounts, your records, documents and books of accounts can only be relayed. Why are you relying on this external document? Again, friends, we are coming from this audit background, corroborative evidence. Now, what is the guarantee that you have accounted for all transactions? What is the guarantee that I should not take this 20 lakhs as the right figure? You as an assessee prove the responsibilities on you. So here, penalty under section 122 shall be levied and penalty equivalent to the amount of tax evaded. That is rupees 96,000 shall be my penalty. This is my penal provision. Please examine the volume of penalty, what you are paying and what is the exposure on profit and loss account. do you have so much of profits to retain, assuming this kind of exposure comes into picture. So this is where your value addition comes into. Goods worth 12 lakhs were supplied on various occasions without a proper cover of an EV bill required under Rule 138 of CGST rules. Now, assuming that entire transactions are taxable, where EV bill is compulsory, I draw attention to your section 122, where they say transports any taxable goods without cover of a documents as may be prescribed. Because this transaction has already taken place, and after some point in time when I'm doing a EV bill reconciliation, this has come into my picture. There's no tax evaded. Whatever tax due was required, it has been paid. Because it is a procedural lacuna, then under section 122, 10,000 will be applicable as a penalty. This is the answer for this question. Next, details of advance received and adjusted with tax invoices issued for audit period are not duly maintained. So when I refer to my section 35, documents and records to be maintained under section 35, one of the requirement is all the advances I need to keep a register. There was no documents or registers maintained properly. My bank statements reveal lapses in the amounts collected vis-a-vis the amounts billed. Total difference quantified as on 31st March amounts to rupees 95,000. So what happened? This auditor has noted that there is an advance on which 95,000 there is a tax payable but not paid, and also he has not maintained a register. So here there are two offenses. Offense number 1, and I draw your attention to one of the question. I believe J. Kumar in the last session he has asked. End of the session there was one question from J. Kumar. Continuation to his answer. J, this is answer to your question, J. Indirectly in a different fashion. Now here first offense is non-payment of tax. Second offense is non-maintenance of records under section 35. Now, sir, is it for the same transaction? Are you levying a penalty? I would say no. One transaction when money has come, my section 12 or section 13, time of supply, I have to pay tax, I have not paid. Second offense under section 35. So this I would be covering under either section 12 or section 13. Now please keep in mind section 12 advances, there is no tax to be paid unless the tax invoice is issued. For a moment let us assume that this is in relation to a service. If it is in relation to service, then tax has to be paid on advances. So here quantification of tax, I'll assume that 18% is the rate of tax. On this 18% shall be my tax. And my penalty under section 122 shall be equivalent to the tax evaded. This is what will be levied under section 122. And also non-maintenance of records, a penalty of 10,000 shall be applicable. So this is how each and every transaction will be looked up into various provisions of the GST law. I draw attention again into this example saying that when you cover this particular chapter, that is offenses and penalties, it is as good as a recap of all the provisions what you have read till now and also the problems what are set in this particular chapter. Coming further, next problem, goods worth 80,000 plus applicable GST at the rate of 18% have not been recorded in the books of accounts produced. The above goods are used in the production undertaken by the assessee. Suitable assumptions can be made towards rate of tax. Okay, now this particular case, they say when there was an audit happened, there was one question from J. Srivastava and I think Gigi Jose in the last session he asked a question. Sir, what if, what scenario the officer gets to know that the relevant records are not updated with respect to inventory, etc. Answer to your question, Gigi, this example, when there is an inspection where there was a physical stock available and the book stock and physical stock was not matching, and when was questioned why it was not matching, this scenario comes into picture where bill is available, material have come on the strength of a tax invoice. It was not accounted for various reasons. Now, officer can very well say, look, you have violated the provisions of GST law where you are supposed to account but not accounted. So here again, 10,000 or tax evaded. Now here it is this input tax on whatever 80,000 is there, 80,000 into 18%. Assuming it's all IGST, Officer will say, look, to the extent of 14,400 went out of our knowledge. So under section 122, again, I'll levy a penalty under 14,400. So this is the answer point by point with respect to our discussion on this particular example Excel file which we have set in the last session. So friends, this example B is set in the backdrop of your section 122. Now come to your example number C. This has been set in the backdrop of your section 126, where we saw what are the general disciplines with respect to penal provisions. Now, let me read the question for you. Mrs. PBC and Co. have received a letter from GST officer in relation to discrepancies in input tax credit availed as per 3B vis-a-vis GST 1 available on the portal. Details of the discrepancies are as below. Now here, this is an inquiry letter which has been come from the GST proper officer, where he says, I compare your GSTR 3B, I compare with your GSTR 2A, that is where your suppliers have filed their returns. I notice that there is a gap. Kindly explain for the differences. In the process, he has given the answer for those differences. Point number 1. ITC availed on imports have been wrongly disclosed at 2 places under the head IGST for rupees 12 lakhs. Now, what happened? When I file my GST 3B, people who have experience and exposure with respect to filing of returns, and people who have already filed returns, there is a form called GST 3B. In that, there is table 4A, where I have to show the details of imports, show the details of input services, RCM, input services, RCM, domestic, then your IST, then your all other ITC. So what happened? I've shown 12 lakhs under regular column. I also showed under imports column. ITC on imports have been wrongly disclosed at 2 places. So here there was a availment of input tax credit, twice. Now offense under this section 122 subsection 2. Officer would demand 100% of the tax amount as penalty. 100% of the tax amount as penalty. What he will say, look, you should not have taken 12 lakhs. Since you have taken 12 lakhs, I will levy entire 12 lakhs as a penalty. Now, why? Officer says, you have an intention to evade payment of tax. Now, here I would draw your attention. If this intention to evade payment of tax does not exist, then my exposure shall restrict to 10% of this particular amount. So look at here. Instead of paying 1,20,000, officer will demand entire 12 lakhs. Now what I have to do? I draw attention to 126, what we have read just now. Under 126, I have said, if voluntarily I'll go forward and make a intimation to the range office or the department officer. Sir, I did a mistake. Please condone my mistake. This is the mistake I have done. So kindly take this particular tax along with interest, and I give that letter. My intent to evade payment of tax, bucket number 2 under section 122, is completely taken care. Point number 2. Input tax credit has been availed on invoice, not in compliance under section 16.2, read with rule 36.4 to a tune of 95,000. So what they say, you have taken an input tax credit where there's a basic details to be mentioned which have not been mentioned. So what are those details? If it is an interstate supply, there should be a place of supply mentioned, supplier GST number, buyer GST number, details, particulars of the goods or services, tax charged thereupon. If these details are not available, I'm not entitled for availment of input tax credit. So here, because I have taken, again, my penalty under 122 for entire 95,000 shall be available. ITC has been erroneously purchased, has been punched in the books of accounts as 1,82,000 for an invoice instead of 1,28,000. Clerical error. If you recollect your 126.1, where they say minor breach. Now, is this a minor breach? Look at the amount. 1,82,000 minus 1,28,000. 54,000. Now, if I take a shelter under 126.1, I would say only sum up to 5,000 rupees. There is a shelter under 126.1 where penalty cannot be applicable. Because the amount is higher, my 126.1 cannot be applied. Now, PBC of the firm believe that observations noted at point 1 and 3 are procedural and negligible. So, answer would be only up to sum of rupees 5,000. That too, an error which is a procedural error which is made without an intent to evade payment of tax. That shall alone be condoned. Otherwise, it is completely applicable to penalty. So here also officer would say whatever 54,000 excess you have taken, entire 54,000 I would be levying your penalty. So friends, this is your Excel file what we have discussed all questions in relation to penal provisions under 122 and 126. There's one question from Ravi in problem number C, penalty whether it is 1,20,000 or 12 lakhs. Okay. For problem number C, yes, Ravi. Here there's a question from Ravi whether I should pay penalty of 12 lakhs or 1,20,000. This into 10%. Answer, Ravi, I'll put it this way. Intent to evade tax. No intent to evade tax. This is what my GST law talks when I have to pay my tax. If there is an intention to evade payment of tax, 12 lakhs is a penalty. There is no intent to evade payment of tax. 1,20,000 is my answer. Again, further continuation to answer this, Ravi. Sir, how can I reduce my penalty from 12 lakhs to 1,20,000? I would recommend all of you, please write in your working note, section 126 within brackets, subsection 5, section 126 within brackets 5. As per 126.5, I have to voluntarily make a disclosure to the officer concerned saying that, look, I did a mistake and I have rectified that mistake while making the payment of that along with interest. When I can establish that there is no intent to evade payment of tax, my exposure from 12 lakhs get reduced to 1,20,000. Hope I've answered your question, Ravi. Okay. Ambika and Ravi, hope I have clarified your point. Okay, there is further question from Ambika. In problem C, for point number 3, it can also be rectifiable. It can also be rectifiable. Yes, I completely agree. There is a point from Ambika which is a valid point. Sir, I have accounted in my books as 1,82,000 instead of accounting as 1,28,000. Look, it's a clerical error. While punching the entry 182, look at your keyboard 182. It has gone as 128. So, isn't it a clerical error? Answer is definitely it is a clerical error. Now, next question comes here. Now, look from the department point of view. Look from the revenue point of view. Have you enjoyed input tax credit of 1,82,000 or have you enjoyed input tax credit of 1,28,000? If my answer is 1,82,000, haven't you enjoyed 54,000 more than what you are supposed to enjoy? Let me cross check this figure. 182 minus 128. Yeah. So, have I not enjoyed this 54,000 as an input tax credit while filing my return? If answer is yes, then we have violated. So what is the recourse we have? Instead of 54,000, let me restrict my penalty to 5,400. Again, answer, I'll go back to what I've explained to Ravi. Section 126, clause subsection 5. That is my answer, where I can reduce my exposure. Hope I've clarified your point, Ambika. There's one point from J. Section 122.1, 122 both cover supply of goods without tax with invoices. So, two penalties. Okay. Yeah, Jay, I got your point. There's one question from Jay saying that, sir, 122.1, 122.2 both covers with respect to one point called transportation of goods or non-payment of tax. Will there be a levy of penalty under both 1 and 2, subsection 1, subsection 2? Answer to your question, Ravi, no. There cannot be imposition of penalty under two provisions for one offense. Always keep in mind, one offense, one penalty. For one offense, two penalty cannot be imposed. Again, I draw your attention to our Excel file just a while ago, what I was talking about my advances. If you recollect to my advances Excel file, let me come to my Excel file. Yeah. J, please recollect to this example what we have discussed, problem number B, where we said there is offense number 1 on advances. I'm supposed to pay tax under section 12. Sorry, the problem is here. On advances, I'm supposed to pay tax under section 12 or section 13, time of supply. I've violated. Because I have not paid tax, 122 gets triggered. At the same time, I'm supposed to maintain advanced register under section 35. Again, this is a violation under section 35. Look, I'm not levying a penalty on one transaction under two provisions. What I'm trying to do, one, payment of tax not paid, I have levied a penalty. Second, compliance of procedural aspects with respect to maintenance of records not maintained. Again, under that, I have levied one more penalty. So this is different way two penalties for two different activities. But if, sir, what if only one advance is there? I have maintained a register, or only one advance is there, I have not maintained register. Can you levy? Again, if advance is received, tax not paid, taken care as penalty, no, violation. You are supposed to maintain register, not maintained. Again, there is a violation. So this is how multiple provisions can be clubbed together for imposing penal provisions. So I would say one offense under one provision, like 122, you have 21 clauses. Under 122, for clause 1, there is a penalty. For clause 3, there is a penalty. If both the clauses are applicable to a transaction, I cover under both the different provisions, not under the same provision. So one offense, only one penalty. Coming back, section 128, this is, now all along we are talking about penalty. Sir, isn't there a relaxation? 126, there is a relaxation. Another fantastic provision is section 128. This says power to waive penalty or fee. Now there is an authority vested under the law where a commissioner has been given authority on the recommendations of the GST Council for waiving of penalty or late fee. This says that by a notification, there could be a possibility to waive in part or full any penalty referred in 122, 123 or 125. A fantastic provision. I would say assessee friendly provision, but unfortunately officers may not invoke because there is a loss of revenue. So any penalty under 123, under 122, 123, 125. So any of these provisions what we have read till now, there is a possibility for waiving of penalty. Now and also any late fee referred under section 47. Till date, if you ask, right from the day of inception of GST law, this section 128 has been used only for section 47, waiving of late fee. Now, what is this? Sir, if I have to file GST year 1, if I have delayed, if I have defaulted in filing on the due date, then there is a penalty of 25 rupees per day, which is applicable. Various provisions, various returns, different amounts. And most of you could have been aware, today is the deadline for filing GSTR 9 and 9C for financial year 18-19. Many of them have a fear, if I don't file, my penalty under section 47, 100, 200 rupees per day is applicable. Most of the offices across India have been have been burdened with GST returns. Fortunately, there was an extension of date and we have got a relaxation. And most of you would have come back from office with that relief that, chalo, let me attend my classes because there is an extension of my due date. Friends, this is one provision where penalty can be waived off. Now, 129, I would say this 129 is one provision, as I said in the other class, 80% of the cases are lying in High Court, several High Courts across India. Kerala stands number 1 in terms of getting the revenue collections under section 129. I would say one state which is far ahead of levying penalties left and right is Kerala. Hats off to the officers. I would say there is a flimsy levy. Also, there is a genuine levy which is being controlled under this e-way bill provision. Karnataka is one state across India where they have come out with the e-way bill provisions. Next stands Tamil Nadu. Third is your Maharashtra. But in terms of revenue collections under 129, Kerala stands number 1. And if you happen to Google on case laws in section 129, you'll get at least per month one case law from Kerala High Court. So friends, we'll understand section 129 where it talks about detention, seizure, seizure and release of goods and conveyances in transit. I'll give you a broad picture before we go in detail of these provisions. I'll give you a broad understanding of this particular law. Considering the time frame, I'll cover a little faster because there is one more chapter. Your appeals also has to be covered. Now, this section 129 says, look, wherever there is a transportation of goods, it says transportation of goods. It doesn't say taxable goods. Why so? Why so? I have something called e-waybill provision, Rule 138. In my Rule 138, it refers to taxable goods. Exempted goods, there is no requirement of e-waybill. Everyone is aware of that. This provision says, look, whenever there is a transportation of goods, using a motor vehicle, okay? Transportation of goods using a motor vehicle. If at all, a proper officer appointed under the CGST law or SGST law, in short, I'll call GST law, this proper officer does a interception of a vehicle. So what do you mean by that? He stops the vehicle and he verifies. I would like to verify the documents which you are carrying in your vehicle. So in the process of this verification, this person comes to know that this vehicle, the transportation is in violation. This transportation is in violation of the contravention of provisions of GST law. Then section 129 shall be invoked. Section 129 shall be invoked. I'll give an example to understand this better. Take example of your groundnut. Groundnut roasted, groundnut non-roasted. Like whatever this Moongfali, this groundnut peanuts, what we have. Under GST law, there is a levy of tax at the rate of 5% for groundnuts which is roasted. And groundnuts which are raw, which are just out of your agriculture, as it is exempted under GST law. I have been carrying the goods in a vehicle which is taxable. I haven't raised a tax invoice. I have just used a term called bill of supply, where this is a roasted groundnuts which is taxable under GST law. Section 1, you recollect your section 24. Please write down in your working note section 24, which is a compulsory registration. So there is a consignment which is moving from the state of Kerala to the state of Tamil Nadu. Or production happens in Tamil Nadu, say cultivation happened, agricultural activity. From Tamil Nadu, the vehicle is coming to the state of Kerala. This is an interstate supply. This fellow has not registered as the GST law, maybe whatever with the reasons. He says the threshold limit is not more than whatever 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs. He says, sir, I am not supposed to get registered because this threshold limit is there. Section 24, compulsory registration. Now he says, look, you're doing a transportation activity of a goods which is taxable. The moment it is taxable, e-way bill comes into picture. He will say, look, you're supposed to have a e-way bill. You didn't had an e-way bill. So I'm going to levy a penalty. Or the detention under section 129 is going to come. Detention where I don't get convinced. Detention where supporting documents have not been provided. Detention where proper explanation and justification is not given for the deficiencies in a document. So there could be various grounds. I'll explain you. I'll give you a couple of examples which is there in the next slide, where it says where all this detention can happen. So here what they say, wherever there is a transportation and any goods or which are in transport or which have been stored, which are in transit, stored while they are in transit, in contravention. Now when I say in contravention, my entire GST provisions get kicked in, where the officer will keep in back of memory, there should be tax invoice, the rate of tax should be proper, the tax applied should be proper. All these things he will keep into mind. I'll give various examples. Say there is a consignment, like if you recollect this airport, goods imported outside India or goods which have come through a sea. For ease of reference, I'll say there is a airport which is there in say Delhi. The goods have come into the Delhi airport, which are to be supposed to be transited from Delhi to Haryana. But what happened? The transporter, the bill has come in the name of a person who is there in Haryana. The transport, instead of traveling to the direction of state of Haryana, this is traveling to the direction of state of say Madhya Pradesh. So the officers say, look, Haryana is there. You've crossed Haryana and you have traveled to Madhya Pradesh, where it is actually intended to be delivered in the state of your Haryana. So there could be various reasons where he says you have done a contravention. So in case if there is a contravention, then all those goods shall be detained and the goods shall be seized until and unless the relevant amount of seizure has been paid. So it shall be subject to detention and it shall be released. Only some amount of tax along with penalty under 129 is not paid for. Now, if I'm jumping a little fast, there is an issue. Let me share back my screen. Yeah. Okay. Friends, in case if I'm jumping little fast, let me know. I'll go a little slow to cover the questions in this regard. Now, so 129, if I have to say what could be the scenario where this could be detention can happen. Tax invoice with deficiency, where tax invoice is given, place to supply is not there, rate of tax is not mentioned, tax calculation is incorrect. Like I have given tax rate of 12%, but actual tax is 18%, or tax shown is 18%, tax is levied 12%, deficiency in tax invoice. E-waybill part B. Now e-waybill is applicable only in case of taxable goods. E-waybill is either not prepared or in part B, vehicle details are not updated. Applicability of improper GST. Now this is one particular point where many of the cases in Kerala have been held under section 129, where they say you are supposed to charge SGST, CGST, you are supposed to charge IGST, you are supposed to charge 12%, you are supposed to charge 5%. Various reasons the detention order under Kerala government is getting issued. Goods are moving in opposite direction. As I said, instead of coming to north, it is going to south. All this could be one reason why a detention or seizure can happen. Now, what will happen if there is a detention or seizure? I'll give one more example where this actually, this particular section 129 comes into picture. Most of you, if you recollect your travel from rural places to a city or travel from a city to rural places. When you look into this passenger bus, the passenger bus does not come along with the passengers alone. There will be some goods which will be kept on the top. There will be some goods which will be kept in the dicky, and also on the bonnet end, this driver comes with the goods. Now, this is most of the cases 129 provisions are invoked, which are coming from rural areas to the urban areas, where they say, look, you're traveling, you're transporting goods. Was there a bill? Was there an invoice? Was there tax paid? All these things comes into picture. If there is nothing, detention comes into picture. Now, 129 penal provision says, look, I'll release the goods when you pay applicable tax and also a penalty which is equivalent to 100% of the tax payable. Look at the exposure under this law. You're paying applicable tax, also penalty equal to 100% of the tax. So assuming 1 lakh is the worth of goods, 18,000 is there on invoice, they're saying pay 18,000, also a penalty equivalent to 18,000. Sir, I have hardly profit margin of 5%. You are asking me to a penalty of 18,000. From where will I pay that 18,000? Law says nothing doing. You have contravened the GST provisions, then I'll release the goods, detention, seizure and release only when you pay applicable tax and also you pay penalty equivalent to the tax. This is what they say, where the goods are taxable. Sir, what if the goods are exempted? If the goods are exempted, then on payment of an amount equal to 2% of the value of the goods, whatever market value is there, 2% of the value or 25,000 rupees, whichever is less. Whichever is less. If I pay 2% or 25,000, whichever is less, then my goods shall be released. When the owner of the goods come forward, whoever has caused an offense, if they come forward and say, sir, I agree, I admit that it is a mistake. If you pay applicable tax and equivalent amount as a penalty, I'll release taxable goods. Non-taxable, 2% of the value of the goods or 25,000, whichever is less, I have to release my consignment. Now, what if the person, no person is coming forward? Then they say applicable, the detention or seizure can be, the vehicle can be released only when applicable tax along with the penalty equivalent to 50% of the value of the goods. 50% of the value of the goods. Earlier, it was just 100% of the tax. Here, 50% of the value of the goods. 1 lakh on that penalty is 50,000. 1 lakh is the value of the goods. Penalty itself is 50,000. Definitely, people who do this kind of business will run away because of the penal provisions. And this value, the penalty, it shall be reduced by the tax amount paid thereon. So, if at all, if this 1 lakh, 18,000 tax I have paid, penalty of 50,000 minus 18,000, they will collect penalty of balance 32,000. In case if it is exempted goods, amount equal to 5%. In the earlier case, it is 2%. In this case, it is 5% or 25,000 rupees, whichever is less. This is what my scenario where no one is coming forward. This is talking about your section 129, subsection 1, detention, seizure. Now, sir, what if I don't have money? You furnish a bank guarantee, you furnish a security equivalent to whatever tax you are supposed to pay, then that particular consignment shall be released. Now, under section 129, please keep in mind cash flow issues, lot of exposures there. Within 14 days, the relevant tax and the amount has to be paid. If not, I'll go into 130, which is a draconian provision. So law says within 14 days, you come forward and make the payment, I'll release the goods. If you don't pay, furnish a security, bank guarantee. That is also good enough to proceed with. Then there's a form called MVO 06 where an order shall be passed for detention and release of the goods. Then this provision further it says the provisions of 67, that is which deals with your inspection, search, seizure, all those miscellaneous provisions, mutandis applied for detention, seizure. And again, natural justice, unless you are served with a notice, there is a form called MOV7. This MOV7 is a form under which a notice shall be issued the moment there is a detention or seizure. Now, again, principles of natural justice, you will be given an opportunity, then only I will levy a penalty under section 122, section 129, clause 1, A or B. Sir, if I pay, it is presumed that all the provisions are deemed to be concluded under this law and you are free to take those goods. There's one movie, I'm not able to recollect. Shahid Kapoor, there is one Hindi Bollywood movie where this comes in, where customs, there is one Adidas, one pair, instead of one pair of shoes getting imported, only one shoe he will import, again one more shoe imports, which are all actually confiscated goods. Once I pay a penalty or under a notice, it is a genuine goods where it is tax paid. So no other provisions can be invoked under GST law. This is your section 129. Now, further it says, where the person transporting any goods or the owner of the goods fails the amount to pay tax or penalty, provisions under 130 shall be invoked. What is 130? We will see little later. 130, as I said, it is much rigorous and serious provision compared to 129. In 129, my penalty is equal to 100% of tax if I go forward. When we see 130, you will see why it is so draconian provision compared to 129. Now, sir, what if the goods which are detained are perishable goods? Take example, say fish, meat, or any of your food products which are packed with a brand, which are having a brand like rice with brand, rice without brand, which are all perishable in nature or which are hazardous in nature. Then the officer, within a period of 7 days, he can take an action on making invoking the provisions under section 130. So in case of hazardous or perishable goods, my period of 14 days gets reduced to 7 days. Let me see a couple of questions and go further. Kamalesh says difference of line between subsection 1. Yeah, Kamalesh, which section you are referring? 122 or 125 or 126? If you can quote the section number, I will clarify, Kamalesh. Sridhar says rupees 5,000 per transaction in total, section 126. Yes, Sridhar, it is a maximum cap of 5,000, Sridhar. Yes, you are right. Dilip has given me an answer of a movie name, Badmash Company. Yes, Dilip, I recollect now. Badmash Company is one movie where Shahid Kapoor imports the goods. It is one good movie to recap our discussion. Right, Dilip? Ahana says one question. Can you please explain how refund is claimed fraudulently, as a refund is usually only granted only on the prescribed documents being submitted? Fantastic question, Ahana. I'll clarify that. There's one question from Anna where she says that where is fraudulent activity when I file a refund? Now, when I file a refund, now everything is automated. When everything is automated, I have to give my purchase register, I have to give my tax invoices, I have to give various bank receipt documents, etc. Now here, I'll come to the question of Anna, how can a refund happen? There is a invoice on which I have taken input tax credit. Ahana, to answer to your question, take two parties are there. Ahana, a person who has filed a refund application, and Ahana has purchased the goods from, say, Rahul. Rahul is in the state of, say, Karnataka. Rahul has billed to Ahana, and Ahana has claimed input tax and filed for a refund application. Later point in time, department gets to know that Rahul has raised a tax invoice without actual movement of goods. Anna has taken input tax credit saying that she has received the goods, complied with the provisions of section 16, and she got a refund for that. Later, when they get to know that any of the conditions stipulated under section 16 have not been met with, then your refund shall be entitled for disallowance. One example. Another example. Under section 16, within a period of 180 days, I have to make payment to my supplier. What if I have not paid the amount to supplier? I have claimed for a refund application and I have got the refund also. As per section 16, subsection 4, I have to reverse that particular input tax credit. I have not reversed. I have enjoyed my input tax credit. I also have not paid to my supplier. I have violated the GST law. Again, offense under section 122 comes into picture. Hope I have clarified your point, Anna. Moving further, 130. Very, very rigorous and a draconian provision under GST law. This particular provision says that, look, you have supplied or received the goods in contravention of the GST law or the rules made therein where you have an intent to evade payment of tax. Starting point, you have violated the provisions where there is an intent to evade payment of tax. The moment this point comes into picture, what it says, it does not account for any goods on which he is liable to pay tax. Now, wherever there is an inspection or inquiry in under section 67, he has not accounted for goods on which he is liable to pay tax. Example, import of goods or your goods which have been notified under notification 3 of 2017 reverse charge mechanism RCM. There is a notification called section 9, notification under section 9 subsection 3. I have to pay tax on RCM but not paid. This is your point number 2. He supplies any goods or goods liable to tax under this act without having applied for registration. Now what they say, you have contravened any of these provisions. You have supplied in contravention of the provisions. You have not accounted with you are liable to pay tax. You have supposed to register and pay tax. You have not done that. Then my contravention under section 130 comes into picture where okay, let us read further contraventions are there. Contravenes any of the provisions of this act with intent to evade payment of tax. We have read that. He uses any conveyance for carriage of goods in contravention of the provisions of, again, transportation in contravention. Then all these provisions, they say, your transporter, here, my penalty under section 122 is applicable in case of a transporter. Person who is transporting with the contravention of the law, where he knows that this is in contravention of the law. Ambika asked one question in the beginning of the session, sir, ignorance, layman, can he be punishable? If he knows that these goods are liable for confiscation, yes, his reason, like many cases, don't use toll, national highway, use the gully roads, use all the small roads, don't pay toll tax, don't go, all these things, it is an indication that you are contravening. And again, transporter, when he is doing a transportation, by default, he knows there should be e-bill, there should be a tax invoice, because they day-to-day job, they know. When you don't comply with all these things, you also form a party to this particular transaction. So when any of these provisions are met, it says, look, when any of these events which we have discussed have been met, whenever confiscation of any goods or conveyance is authorized by this act, officer shall, who is adjudging this particular consignment, give the owner of the goods an option to pay tax in lieu of confiscation, such fine as the officer thinks fit. Now, this is your starting point. Look, I am going to collect from you something called fine under 130. This fine is in addition to 129. Please keep in mind what 129 we have discussed. My tax amount plus penalty. How much is penalty? 100% of tax if I have come forward. Along with that, a fine. This is what the additional point comes into picture. How much is the fine? Such a fine leviable which shall not exceed the market value of the goods confiscated plus tax chargeable. Whatever market value of the goods is there, equivalent amount has been levied as a fine. Again, Badmash company, whatever Dilip has given an answer, that is what is the case we are saying. I'll collect tax. I'll also collect something called your penalty. I'll also collect something called fine. So these three things are being levied under the GST law. So this is something which is talked in my section 130. Now again, this proper officer shall give the owner, like you pay that particular thing, or this is liable for confiscation, where the government officer shall take the ownership of that particular goods. He takes the ownership of the goods and he shall dispose of those goods as per the suitable provisions of the GST law. So this government officer thinks that these goods are liable for confiscation and the title of those goods shall vest with the government official. Once the goods are to the government officer, they put it for auction and they make a sale of those goods with relevant taxes. Any person who has done the contravention, vehicle has been confiscated, goods have been confiscated. If someone has come forward, pay penalty, fine and tax. If nothing is done, they take the possession as if the goods belong to the government authority and they put it for a public auction, and whatever value is possible, they fetch, whichever it is going to fetch, they take the value and they dispose of that particular material. In the process of this confiscation, if you recollect section 67, taking a shelter of local police, all those regular provisions will the GST penalty under section 130. So it says without prejudice means without foregoing, without accepting that there is a levy under customs law, I also levy a penalty under my GST law. So this particular 131 says without prejudice. Now this is a technical term. People who have not heard this particular term, we use in our drafting. Whenever we do litigation, drafting, etc., we use this particular term called without prejudice. Means without foregoing whatever we have said, having admitted that there is an incident happened. Like example, when there is a goods which have come from outside soil to Indian soil and which has gone out of the knowledge of the customs, or which is going outside, which is going without the knowledge of customs authorities have a right to seize the particular goods, either at the airport or once they have crossed the airport. So when we know that these goods have been confiscated and a penalty and a customs have been levied, without prejudice, admitting that there is a penalty under customs, I also admit under section 131. My authority under 131 says, please go ahead and levy a penalty under 130, 129 or 122, 125. Whichever relevant provisions are there, please levy a penalty under suitable provision. Without prejudice means adding. I'm adding. What I'm doing? I'm adding to levy penalty under this GST law in addition to levy under other laws. The provisions contained under CPC shall be applicable. What they say? At times whenever it is required, in case of detention, seizure, confiscation, I invoke the provisions of CPC. like section 67, when we go for a raid, we take the help of a local police. The same way, your CPC provisions can be used under my section 131 penal provisions. No confiscation made or penalty imposed under the provisions of this act or rules made thereunder. No confiscation made or penalty imposed under the provisions of this act or rules made under. I can levy a penalty even without a confiscation if I get to know that there was a contravention of the provisions of the GST law. And also, there is no provision which can prevent to which person affected there is a. I get to know that this person has been offender. This fellow has been held as an offender under ED. Say there is a FEMA provisions, there is a violation of FEMA provisions. I have held him offender under ED or FEMA provisions. So what if there is a penal provisions under GST law? Example, this taxpayer or there is a company who have defaulted in paying taxes, say assuming 100 crores, 100 crores is too high. Take an example of 5 crores. There is a taxpayer who has offended, who has defaulted in paying of taxes. This person was picked up from FEMA under FEMA violations. Can I invoke penal provisions? Can I invoke prosecution under GST law? Answer is very well yes. Without saying that there is a punishment given under any other law, I can also levy a penal provocation, prosecution. Section 132 we are going to read little a while. I can invoke those provisions saying that this is additional bonus. You got punished under FEMA law. You can also get punished under GST law. This is what my section 131 talks about. So friends, when I am reading 132, it is just an indication that whatever offenses, you cannot say, sir, already I got punished under customs law, already I got punished under FEMA regulations or your RBI regulations. Can I still be punished under GST law? Answer is definitely yes, if there is a default under GST law. So 131 says that no mercy, because you have been punished there, I will be leaving you under this law. There is one question from Kamalesh. Sir, section 122, 121, 122, under section 122, subsection 1, section 122, subsection 2. Is there a difference? Answer is definitely yes. Non-payment of tax, I would look into section 121. If it is a procedural lacuna, then I'll levy a tax under section 122(1), where my penalty leviable is 100%, tax evaded 100%. When I levy, there is a specific levy under section 122(2), where it says if there is an intent to evade, 100% is leviable. If the intent to evade does not exist, 10% of the tax shall be recovered. In the cases of non-payment of tax, in the cases of ineligible or wrong availment of input tax credit, in case of refund. These three cases, Kamlesh, 122(2). One is with respect to non-payment of tax. Second, with respect to irregular availment of tax. Third is in relation to my refund, where my provisions of section 122, subsection 2 shall be invoked. Because it is a specific penal provision where intent to evade, intentional erroneous mistake could be there, penal provisions can get subsumed. So there is a difference to that extent. But for these three provisions, Kamlesh, there is no difference. I'll go by virtue of section 122, subsection 1. Next, punishment for certain offences. This particular section 132, I would say it is a theoretical provision. Nevertheless, though I say it is a theoretical provision, once in a lifetime or once in probably 1 or 2 decades of your career, you would come across these provisions called 132. Very, very serious penal provisions under GST law. Very, very serious offences covered under GST law are listed in my 132. List of offences noted under the GST law which are classified as a major offence. These provisions, section 132, warranting issuance of CPC, institution of CPC. When I say warranting institution of CPC, there will be a arrest warrant. You can have an arrest warrant. Imagine a person who is working in a company as a finance position. He doesn't know that there is a violation or something happening. because of some adjustment between purchase department or say marketing department, there were bills which have come fictitiously. With a good intention, the bills have been accounted, input tax credit has been availed. Later they come to know that there is a violation of say more than a crore or 2 crores. A person who's holding the finance position can get a arrestable warrant under section 132. Very, very draconian and serious offense. Then powers vested with commissioner to instigate proceedings. Under 132, commissioner is the only officer who has the authority to instigate or initiate my proceedings. Under 132, there are the list of offences. They have been classified into bucket 1, cognizable, bucket 2, non-cognizable. Cognizable, which are serious in nature, non-cognizable, offence, not serious in nature. The moment they say cognizable, non-bailable. The moment they say non-cognizable, bailable. Arrest warrant, non-bailable, cognizable. Arrest warrant, bailable, non-cognizable. So please write in your working note this particular para. You can say into. Cognizable, put a direction to non-bailable. Non-cognizable, put a direction to bailable. Examination, a theory question for 4 marks can be expected from 132, where simple example, whether this is punishable based on the magnitude of the amount, there could be a theory question. So I would recommend read this from your examination as a theory point of view. Now, friends will understand the offences in simple terms and we will see what is the magnitude of the offence, what is covered under 132. It says, supplies any goods or services, how without issue of an invoice. Now, probably like a couple of friends what Ambika, Kamlesh and Srivastava have raised, I would ask you to keep in mind most of the provisions 122 1, that is list of 21 cases, the same get repeated here more or less where the magnitude of offence is higher in nature. I repeat, the magnitude is higher in nature. If the magnitude is lesser in nature, I'll go 122, I'll levy in under 122, I'll keep quiet. What is extra covered under this particular section? That is nothing but the value which is there. The value under 132. Right now, like value, it is offence more than 1 crore, you can keep in mind. Supply any goods where invoice has not been issued. How? Intention to evade tax. Also, issues a bill. How? Without supplying of the goods. Why? Again, intention to evade payment of tax. Ahana, one question what you have asked in relation to, sir, how refund will be offence under section 122. Issues an invoice or bill without supplying of the goods or in violation of the provisions of the GST law, which is leading to wrongful availment or wrongful utilization. So this is one offence again to answer your example, Ahana. So one supplies. Second, without movement, I have issued a bill. Avails input tax credit. Again, Ahana, your point gets covered here, where avails input tax credit using a invoice or bill referred in 132B. Collects any amount as a tax but fails to pay to the same to the government beyond a period of 3 months. Now here I have collected the tax, I have enjoyed the money of the government. Evade tax fraudulently or avails input tax credit fraudulently, obtains refund. Falsifies a substitute financial records, one of the biggest offender. Friends, keep in mind this clause F, clause G. Clause F, clause G. Now, post qualification, when you get into your practice, post qualification, when you get into industry, give utmost importance. I'm not talking from examination point of view. Look from your career point of view. Falsifies a substitutes financial records or produces fake accounts or documents or furnishes any false information with an intent to evade payment of tax. Now, this is a case where wherever there is an inquiry, I try to give a false information so that I'll not get exposed to the audit. Officer says, look, you have taken input tax credit of 50 lakhs. In your GST 2A, it is showing only 10 lakhs. I could have taken 40 lakhs to save my interest. Whatever output tax is there, to reduce my output tax, fictitiously I have inflated my purchase input tax credit. When an inquiry has come, you have given a financial records, you have falsely accounted purchases. All these transactions, I am going to say, along with the management, the person in charge shall also be equally held responsible under your CPC provisions. So with that backdrop, I always say, please keep in mind as a professional, give utmost importance when you're giving data to your department people. Sir, I have given a printout wrongly. Sir, by mistake, instead of giving this annexure, I gave that annexure. I have 3 to 4 group companies. When I'm giving annexures, by mistake, another group company annexure I have given. All this comes under this particular thing called falsified. Clause F. Clause G, like obstructs or prevents an officer. You're trying to avoid or you're trying to stop his performing duty. Coming back to Clause F, there is a simple imprisonment irrespective of the magnitude of the value. Under 132, like 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, 5 crore, there is a magnitude of value under which there is a punishment given. For Clause F, Clause G, they say simple imprisonment of 6 months, though the value is less than 1 crore. So this is the magnitude under section 132. Be careful when you hold a decent position, all the statements which you sign as a qualified chartered accountant or a person holding a position, don't give unless you're sure of the data, especially to the anti-evasion or department scrutiny. Point H, acquires or possession goods which he has the knowledge to believe that these are all liable for confiscation. You have purchased the goods. You know that these goods are liable for confiscation. I, he receives or in any way concerned with supply or in any manner deals with supply of services. Okay, this is generally a provision where you are rendering services which are in contravention of the GST law. Tampers or destroys any material evidence. Now this is again an important. You are trying to deface an evidence. You are trying to destroy an evidence or a document. Even then, this is a punishable offence. Finally, fails to supply any information which is called or which is you have given, which you know that it is a false information. Attempts to commit or abet. Now, clause L, you haven't done anything directly, but you have encouraged, you as a felicitator, you as a advisor, you as a financial advisor. If you have encouraged, you have trained, you have guided. At times, see, most of the cases when there is a search and seizure, it is always the assessee says that I don't know anything. There is one point from Mansi, video stop. Is everyone having a problem with the video or is the video working? There's only one person called Mansi who says video has been stopped. Jay, are you there? Hope videos going on. Mansi, let me see if any other people put their remarks in the question box that video is stopped. Otherwise, I'll continue, Mansi. Yes. With respect to this point L, most of the time, whenever there is a search and seizure, they say, I don't know anything. Auditor has guided me. Now, please ensure that you have exercised your professional judgment and your advice in proper manner where you have guided as per the law. You are not a party of any of these offences. Please keep this particular point in mind. Very soon you are going to become a professional qualified chartered accountant, and once you get into practice, your ethics should be very high and advices should be straightforward. Now, all the offences what we have discussed till now, it says, if the amount of offence is exceeding 1 crore but less than 2 crore, your simple imprisonment up to 1 year with a fine. Simple imprisonment. If your offence is exceeding 2 crore but less than 5 crore, an imprisonment of 3 years. If the offence is more than 5 crore, a period of 5 years minimum with fine. So 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. Choice is up to you. If the offence is 1 to 2 crore, 1 year. If the offence is 2 to 5 crore, 3 years. If the offence is more than 5 crores, 5 years. Now, friends, this is one major provision under GST law where any tax which is due, which is outstanding, any tax outstanding not paid beyond 1 crore, you are, along with the, whoever is the person in charge who is holding the office shall be punishable under section 132 with the imprisonment of 1 year along with a fine thereof. So this is one violation for that. Imprisonment of minimum 6 months in the absence of special and adequate reason to the contrary recorded by the judgment of the court. So here they say unless there is a power granted, minimum 6 months, there is a punishment which is going to be there under this law. Ambika has confirmed it is working fine. Thanks for confirmation, Ambika. Yeah, Mansi, I have noted your point. Thank you. Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for the confirmation. There's one question from Srinivas. With reference to Badmash company in the present scenario, he may escape from customs, but GST is applicable for the sale. Yes, Srinivas, say, good question. Srinivas says, sir, we are talking about Badmash company example where under customs we have paid this customs law, customs penalty. Even under GST also there is an offence and there is a duty payable. Answer to your question is right. Srinivas Reddy, answer to your question, yes. Now, when I pay customs duty, please keep in mind, we are going to cover customs provisions. My levy of customs duty shall also include my GST component where I would have paid even the GST also. Assuming this was not officially paid at customs, it has come into the market post, in the process of selling the goods in the market, if there was a offence noted by the customs officer, even the GST officer comes in, levies a penalty top and above my customs provisions. Your point is valid, Srinivas. Now, friends, this is what I was referring to. There is a reference to clause FGJ. This clause FGJ is referring to these provisions called your falsified information and obstructs the officer. And one more point called your tampering of the evidence. Now, any of these offences, please keep in mind, 6 months is the minimum penalty. 6 months is the punishment. And if the offence is committed for the second time, minimum 5 years with fine. So this is some procedural provisions which is there under my section 132. And they say, now this is what I was talking about, cognizable, non-cognizable. Anything what we have discussed till now, all those A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, total there are 8 provisions. All those shall be non-cognizable except this A, B, C, D, except 4 punishments where they say, if you commit any of these 4 provisions, if you commit any of these 4 offences, what they say, your offence value is more than 5 crore. Your offence value is more than 5 crore. All these 4, like supply of goods without issue of invoice, issues a bill without supplying, avails input tax credit, or collects amount as a tax but fails to pay to the same. Any of these 4 offences, friends, it is a non-bailable offence. That means it is a cognizable offence. So please keep in mind, you join a corporate world, you hold a position, you become an auditor or you become a director. You need to keep in mind whenever there is an offence which is having an offence value more than 5 crores and any of these 4 elements, then it is a non-bailable offence or it is a cognizable offence. Examination 1 4 marks theory question can be expected from this particular slide 132. Then we'll move on further. Yeah. This, in simple terms, they say, what do you understand by the term tax? My tax shall include amount of tax awarded, amount of input tax credit wrongly availed or utilized or refund wrongly taken. My tax not paid, tax input tax wrongly taken, input tax wrongly availed or utilized or refund. All this put together is called my tax. Now, having said 132, sir, all along we were talking about what is an offence. We were talking about who has to pay offence, what is the amount of offence. Now we come to this slide called liability of an officer. This provision says that no officer in charge, any person who is concerned with this particular investigation, search, seizure, etc. If he is revealing any information, then it is a punishable offence with an imprisonment of a term minimum of 6 months and also a fine equivalent to 25,000. So you can refer to section 70 where summons are there. If any of the officer who's holding a position, he has got a key information, he is disclosing that information for his personal benefit, which is not supposed to be shared, then he is liable to punish under 133 with minimum 6 months of imprisonment and also a fine of 25,000. So 25,000 is a big amount, small amount, but still 6 months imprisonment is good enough to tear apart his career, entire career. Now they say he shall not be, a government servant shall not be prosecuted for any offence under this act except with a previous sanction of the government. Means there is a hierarchy where I have to take an approval from the principal commissioner, etc., to execute penal provisions under this particular law. Next, 133, person who is liable. Now 134, cognizance of offences. Now no court shall take cognizance of an offence punishable under this act or rules made thereunder except with the previous sanction of the commissioner, and no court inferior. What they say, they take into cognizance of this offences which are listed. Like court cannot take a lenient view when they are hearing, like whenever we refer to appeals where there is a punishment, penal provisions, etc. Courts will not take a lenient view, rather they will take the rigorous provisions which are there under GST law. On the basis of that, the cases shall be decided. Now again, this is one theory question. I'll quickly run through with the basic understanding. Presumption of culpable mental state. This particular provision says, look, this particular term presents a culpable mental state. Now, most of the times, friends, when there is a section 70 summons issued, when there is a statement recorded, when there is a document evidence, etc., when matter is decided on the basis of those particular evidences, the magistrate, the judge, the appellate authority, etc., when we come to appeals, they ensure, they take into mind that the statement was taken from a person where there's a mental state which is a reasonable sound knowledge. It is not an unsound knowledge where this particular recording has been taken care. That is what talks about 135. When any matter is being decided, they ensure that the statements or evidences relayed are with a sound knowledge. Then relevancy of statements, they say, in the process of adjudication where penal provisions are being investigated or taken, where an officer has to take into this particular fact that there is an offence happened. When we refer to section 130 and 132, this particular provision says that there should be a reliability on the statements under what circumstances these have been taken. Again, if you recollect your CPC provisions where a person who has been issued with a warrant, he will be kept under custody. He will not be allowed to sleep. They will see that the person's mental state is imbalanced, where there is no presence of, like when a person is about to sleep, you are disturbing him not to sleep, make him continuously for 15 to 18 hours, that particular state of mind where unsound knowledge comes into picture. Where they say, out of that pressure, if there is any evidence or statements recorded and if it is proven to be adverse at a later stage, then they will set aside those statements and they take into cognizance before deciding on any offence. Next, offences by company. This is one provision where they say, look, any of those offences we have talked till now, all those are offences which is committed by a company. Now, this particular provision says that every person who at the time of offence was committed, who was in charge of the person, who was in charge of that particular office, who is responsible for the company to conduct of the business, he shall be deemed to be guilty of an offence along with the company per se. Now, this 137 is 137.1, 137.2. One of the provision I would recommend most of the young budding chartered accountants to keep in mind, where post qualification, once you get into a corporate, especially a big corporate where you hold a decent position, along with the company, the holder of the office, in the first provision, subsection 1, holder of the office who happens to be the managing director, CEO, he shall be held responsible, shall be deemed to be guilty along with the company. In 137.2, it says, where an offence under this act has been committed by a company and is proved that offence has been committed with the consent or connivance of or attributable to negligence or part of the director, manager, secretary or other officer of the company, then such director, manager, secretary or other officer shall also deemed to be guilty of that offence. Friends, most of the times we see under central excise, which is also now squarely covered under GST law by 137, where wherever there is an anti-evasion team who comes for an audit, when they notice that the offense was committed which is of a high value nature, complete breach of the law, like when you travel back section 132, A, B, C, D, 4 offenses what we have talked about. If any of those offenses are noted, most of the time they say, look, this was a committed offense with an intent to evade payment of tax, where a party to offense, a penal provision shall be vested on the company along with the managing director, along with the officers, all equally. That means to say, all the offenses which are there, penal provisions, shall be held personally responsible along with the company on these officers in charge. So this is what section 137 subsection 2 says. So very, very important to prove that wherever there is an offense, any person who is holding a higher position, they shall be made a party with a personal guarantee. So this is one offense which we need to keep in mind whenever we advise to any particular entity. Not only company, or in relation to LLP, in relation to HEF, the person who's a partner or karta or a managing trustee shall also deemed to be guilty along with that particular LLP or a partnership firm or a HUF. In addition to this, if the offense was committed without his knowledge, nothing contained in this section shall render any such person liable to any punishment provided in this act if he proved that offense was committed without his knowledge. Now, most of the cases we saw in a couple of court of law where board of directors have taken a decision where one of the director has taken on leave. Now, that point in time, any of this, say, intercompany borrowing or a contract where one of the director is having expression of interest, etc., where there are business transactions and one of the managing partner can come forward and prove that, look, this particular transaction I am not a party, where I have a substantial evidence to prove, then he shall not be held personally responsible with respect to that particular offense. And also, most of the time when I was referring to 137(1)(2), please keep in mind, the person who was a director, the person who was a managing director, the person who was a CEO at that point in time shall be held responsible for an offense during that particular point in time, along with the present managerial person. So this is how the offenses will be looked upon under 137. Now, finally, we come into this particular provision called 138, provision under 138. Ravi asked a question, sir, can we have a break? Ravi, I'll give you a break. We will finish this provision and we'll take a break, Ravi. We'll wait for this particular provision to get completed. Now, I'll take 5 minutes, Ravi, then we will have a break. 138, which talks about your compounding of offenses. Now, this is a provision which is as good as a little relief, a small relief when there is a magnitude of exposure. So 138 says that whenever there is an offense, a serious offense, commissioner has the authority to condone, to give some sort of relief by virtue of this provision called compounding of an offense. So who is authorized? Commissioner. Commissioner under state or central has an authority to do this. Commissioner is alone permissible for compounding, and it is a mechanism to condone a particular amount. What will happen? Whenever an amount has been quantified under this particular provision, this 138 refers to 132, serious provisions. Whenever any of those serious provisions have been committed, under 138, I'm going to give you a relaxation. What is the relaxation? We will see the amount which is quantified. So examination at best, one theory question again for 4 marks you can expect from this particular slide. Compounding of offense. Minimum amount, what can be compounded? 50% of the tax or 10,000. That is my smaller amount. Upper amount, what is amount which can be quantified? 150% of the tax inward or 30,000, whichever is higher. Now please keep in mind, higher of 50% of the tax, or again this is for a minimum limit. For upper limit, 150% of the tax inward. So examination, they'll give you, say there is XYZ limited company where 530 lakhs was recovered as an amount in offence under section 132. Kindly quantify the amount of compounding fees. Now, let's say 530 lakhs. I'll come to my Excel to quickly give you a clarification. If you look into my screen, amount of offence is 530 lakhs. So here there is a minimum limit and there is an upper limit. Now, minimum limit, it says my minimum limit is 50% of the tax involved and maximum is 150% of the tax involved. 50% of tax and 150% of tax. Here 10,000 or 10,000 or 30,000. So my computation of compounding amount 530 lakhs. So 530 lakhs into 50%. This is my minimum ceiling. Maximum 530 lakhs into 150%. 795 lakhs. So this is the minimum amount of compounding fees and maximum is 795 lakhs. Usually what will happen, 530 lakhs, the commissioner, he would give relaxation of 320 lakhs. But arbitrarily what he will do, he will give 50 to 75% amount usually as a compounding fees. Why? The amount of quantification is substantial in nature. In that regard, they will try to give a compounding of fee where it can be settled, and once this amount has been paid, it is presumed that all the cases have been taken care. So friends, this is one provision which is dealing with your compounding of fees. Now we will take a quick break of 5 minutes. We'll come back and we will discuss with our appeal provisions. Maximum 3 to 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll start with our appeal provisions. See you all till that time. on this topic called appeal and revisionary provisions. There's one example called problem D. I'll quickly take up this 129. This problem D is under section 129. I also wanted to draw your attention in terms of presentation of this problem from examination point of view. Then we will go to our next topic of discussion. Hope you are able to see my Excel file. Please confirm you are able to see my Excel file. Okay. Okay. Yes. Thanks for the confirmation. Let me continue with my discussion. In the last session, I've said, look, you can have your own style of answering in your examination. Presentation recommended. You can have part A, what is the facts of the case. Part B, what are the relevant provisions under the GST law. Part C, how do you analyze the applicable provisions to the given case. And finally, you have to give a conclusion. Now, in this part D, like this is my facts of the case, relevant GST provisions. Then we will make something called analysis of the case, and finally conclusion. Now, examination. It is not compulsory that you have to write your section reference. Absolutely okay. Only thing, please don't quote a wrong section reference. Please don't quote a wrong section reference. Now, there is one question. Let me take up one question quickly, then come to this particular problem. Yeah. There's one question from J. Srivastav. What is the benefit of compounding if tax, interest, penalty has also to be paid? This particular thing, J, see, on this particular matter, what we have discussed, if the officer is demanding interest, penalty, etc. on the tax amount, here under compounding, this is a one-time settlement. Please understand, this is a one-time, once in a lifetime kind of benefit where I've been asked to pay some amount which is called as a compounding fee, which includes your tax, interest, penalty, which is a reduced magnitude compared to the maximum exposure. So always the amount of your interest penalty gets reduced, not to the 100%, at least to some extent when I go for a compounding. Now, commissioner generally, principal commissioner or commissioner, they take a leeway in terms of giving a relaxation, considering the magnitude, considering the financial hardship, etc. And the willingness of the assessee who has come forward to compromise, like he admits that, look, my lord, I have done a mistake. Having done a mistake, I would like to reframe my business model. So give me one occasion. So with that particular request, the condonation generally happens. This is my answer to your question, J. Now coming back to this particular problem D, section 129, where this particular problem has been said. Mr. X, an officer under state GST, has intercepted a public transport bus carrying some goods. On verification, there were goods carrying in such vehicle worth 3 lakhs, which attracts GST at the rate of 5%. Owner of the conveyance has got no supporting documents to justify the movement. Owner of the conveyance has got no supporting documents to justify the movement of the goods. Examine the provisions of the law where bus owner comes forward to comply with the GST provisions and no person takes the responsibility. Point number B. Now, what would be your answer if the tax invoice, there is a tax invoice, but GST applied, there is no GST applied on such goods? We'll come one by one. Now, first and foremost, facts of the case, we will say that there is a consignment which has been confiscated. Value of the goods, 3 lakhs. Rate of GST applicable, 5%. Scenario A, owner has come forward to comply with the GST law. Scenario B, no person has come forward. Below that, I am going to write my GST provisions. If someone has come forward, what I have to do? I have to pay tax plus 100% of the tax payable on such goods where someone has come forward. If it is exempted goods, 2% of the value or 25,000 rupees, whichever is less. Further, on payment of the applicable tax, where someone has not come forward, on payment of applicable tax and penalty equivalent to 50% of the value of the goods reduced by the tax amount. This is what my provision says. So here I'll say analysis. Since for option A, transport owner has come forward for payment complaints with GST law. So I'll say section 129 1 clause A is applicable. What is a quantification? Tax plus penalty, 100% of tax. So this is my analysis. For clause B, I'll say no one has come forward. Then I'll say section 129 clause 1 clause B is applicable. So what is going to happen if no one is going to come forward? My tax office is going to recover a tax and also penalty, which is a higher amount. Tax plus here my clause B says that 50% of the value of the goods reduced by tax amount. 50% of the value of goods reduced by tax paid. Now, here we will, in conclusion, we will say for point A, penalty is applicable as below. My computation of penalty will be 3 lakh is the value of the goods. Tax payable, tax at the rate of 5%. My tax applicable at the rate of 5%. This is my tax amount. Penalty, which is 100%. So my penalty is going to be 15,000. So for scenario A, where the goods are taxable and 5% is the rate of tax, one of the assessee has come forward, my tax is 15,000, penalty is also 15,000. For clause B, again I'll copy this thing, convenience purpose. Here I'm going to say penalty is applicable as below. Value of the goods 3 lakh and tax at the rate of 5%. My penalty is equivalent to 50% of the value of the goods. 50% of the value of the goods. Now here we will say if tax is paid, reduced by the same gets reduced from penalty. So if I pay the tax, I would be paying 1,50,000 minus 15,000. 1,35,000 I am going to pay penalty. So this is what we need to indicate in respect to 129. So this is my answer to section 129, where we will elaborate the provisions, we will analyze the particular law, and finally we will give the answer for the particular given problem. Question says, what would be answer if tax invoice, if there is a tax invoice but no GST has been applied on such goods? Now, this is a point of dispute where the person who is selling the goods, he says that goods are not taxable. Officer says the goods are taxable. So this is a point of contention where litigation comes into picture. Entire our discussion of your appeals litigation starts from this particular example. What happened? My transporter, my owner has issued a tax invoice. He says the value of tax is 0. But the officer says, no, 5% is the rate of tax. So what will happen here? My officer under section 129, issues a order. My penalty gets concluded, my penalty gets confirmed under section 129. So under section 129, the officer is going to levy a penalty. So here, the assessee shall pay tax and go for appeal on the dispute. Friends, this is my starting point for our next discussion called your appeals and revision. This is my next point of discussion. Hope you are clear with the example of 129, what we have discussed. There are no further questions till now other than what Jay has asked a little while ago. Jay, hope I have clarified your compounding question, Jay. If not, let me know. I'll re-clarify on that particular aspect. So friends, we will start with our next topic of discussion called appeals and revision. This is one chapter which is there in your syllabus. I would say more of theory. I'll try to add value addition in terms of your post-qualification and also with some examples here and there. Bear with me for next another 30 minutes or so where we will discuss on these provisions in detail. Now, starting with this particular appeals and provisions, what is that we are going to discuss and understand from this particular topic? Basics of adjudication, basics of your dispute and how the adjudication happens. We will also understand from this particular topic what are the documents which are relevant in our reference. What is the hierarchy of appeal? Persons who can file an appeal. Please keep in mind, you are going to give a value addition. You are going to give a value addition in any of the tax matters, where you're cautious, you're also having a judicious knowledge of the legal implications or legal provisions when you're giving a reply to the government offices. Now, I would give you that this particular session is going to have a value addition, how you have to improvise your communication when you are getting into communication with the external parties. So with that backdrop, I'll cover what is there in your syllabus. Also, we will see what is the value addition we have to do in terms of making letters to the department offices. Why? At every stage, I'll try to give with the practical examples. Contents relevant for an appeal along with the corresponding due dates. Here, when we file an appeal, what are the contents which are there in an appeal? What are the relevant due dates within which I have to file an appeal? What is my responsibility when I file an appeal? These aspects also we will try to understand. Advancement of appeals till the matter attaining finality. What is my responsibility when there is an appeal, and what is the what is expected from me as an assessee with respect to the relevant books of accounts? Probably a couple of sessions back, if you travel, section 35, when we were talking about retention of books of accounts, the faculty has said that you have to retain a books of accounts for a period of 60 months from the date of your end of the relevant financial year. Along with that, there is one also additional point saying that whenever you go on any matter for an appeal, till the matter attains finality, you are having a responsibility to maintain your books of accounts. So that is one point which is relevant for you when you keep in mind with respect to this appeals or litigation. Now, what are the basics of my adjudication? Now, the term adjudication, when I say adjudication, this refers to a process where a proper officer under a GST law, has decided that you as a registered person has to pay tax but not pay. Or the officer decides that you as a registered person or you as a taxable person, you have violated with couple of expectation or requirements as per the GST law. So what is happening in adjudication? In adjudication, a formal statement is going to get confirmed on the taxable person saying that you have not paid taxes, you have short paid your taxes, you have wrongly availed input tax credit, you have claimed your refund erroneously, or finally you have violated with any of the procedural aspects. So adjudication is on a person. Now how does it happen? Triggering points. So how does the officer get to know that I have not paid tax? How does the tax officer know that there is a procedural lacuna which has not been complied with? For that, the triggering point is filing of returns on periodical basis. If I have not filed my returns or I have filed my returns, there is a mismatch in the data what I filed. GSTR 1 versus 3B, input tax as per GSTR 3B compared with what is there as per the supplier. This is my triggering point. Taxable person, non-filing of returns on a periodical basis. This is the next point. As a registered person, I have to file my returns. I have defaulted in filing my returns. Again, my adjudication comes into picture. Discrepancy in ITC, self-assessed. Discrepancy in procedural aspects where e-way bill was to be issued but not issued. Documentation, where I have to issue a tax invoice, I have not issued, or tax invoice is issued, there is a deficiency. E-way bill, when we are talking about procedural aspects, I request you to refer back to our example, what we have discussed a while ago. As per the tax invoice, as per the e-way bill. I'll give you one classic example which happened in Kerala, 2018. There is one gentleman who is into what you call the betel nut. The betel nut, which is used in pan masala. This gentleman from Kerala is transporting goods to a customer in Tamil Nadu. This gentleman, what he has done, he raised a tax invoice showing that rate of tax is 5%. The officer under the Kerala state jurisdiction says, this betel nut does not get taxed at 5%, this gets taxed at 12%. There was a dispute of tax, whereby the officer said you have to pay tax and penalty under section 129, and he has confiscated the goods. Now what will happen? I, as a taxman, I believe that 5% is taxable rate. Officer has a different opinion that 12% is the rate of tax. Now officer says I am duty bound, unless you pay I cannot release the goods, and I'll say it is my humble belief that 5%. Now when there is a dispute, officer says, look, I have issued an order under 73, 74 or 129. Now in this case e-way bill 129, section 129. You pay the tax, differential tax, 5% you are paying. Balance 7% what you have to pay, you pay the tax and you take the goods with you. Now is it only the tax? No, it is tax along with my penalty. Now I'll draw your attention at this point where if you recollect your input tax provisions, section 17 subsection 5, where they say any tax paid under section 129 is not eligible as an input tax credit. Any tax which you have paid under section 73 or 74, again not eligible for input tax credit. So what will happen? Me as a taxpayer, even if I want to admit to the tax officer, instead of paying 5%, I have to pay 12%. There is a huge loss of 7% because section 17 subsection 5 disallows my input tax credit. There is a restriction. So this is the point where my adjudication starts. Documentation. There is a deficiency in documentation. I failed to prepare a document. Again, there is a corroborative evidence or some evidence to say, though there is a deficiency in my tax invoice, my delivery challan has got the details. Now, this is one another point of dispute. Next comes is your registration. We were talking about casual taxable person. I am ought to get registered under one state as a CTP. I am not registered. Again, I'll give you an example. Take our own example as a chartered accountant. Sir, I am sitting in the state of Tamil Nadu. I have rendered services to a client in Maharashtra. What you have done? Sir, I have given a training services to my client in Maharashtra. Have you registered in Maharashtra? No, I have not registered. Okay, what you have done? Sitting in Tamil Nadu, I have raised a bill for 1 lakh and I have charged IGST of 18,000. My tax officer in Maharashtra says you ought to get registered, but you are not registered. You get registered and pay tax here. I would say, look, I have rendered the services from the state of Tamil Nadu. I need not get registered. Again, a dispute. Again, the officer says you pay this. This is order. You pay this particular amount. Now, I, being a tax person, if I want to litigate, if I want to say that I need not pay, unless I pay that particular tax or unless I go for an appeal, I will not get a relief on that particular thing. Again, this is by way of a adjudication where a statement has been served on you saying that you have violated a particular law. Next. Points of discovery where there could be this particular adjudication can happen, how it can come into picture. A special audit. We were talking about a chartered accountant who has been appointed under section 66 where he conducted a special audit. That could be one point. Investigation or inspection, section 67. Officer has come for your regular investigation or a regular assessment. Any of these points I can get into this kind of dispute. Now, stages of adjudication, how it will happen. First and foremost, this officer will make an inquiry. He he'll send you a notice saying that I am verifying these details. Kindly provide why this particular tax shall not be recovered from you. So based on his letter, what we will do, verification, I will provide some details and documents. That particular details and documents shall be examined by the officer. That officer, based on my details, he'll prepare a list of discrepancies which is in regard to legal or procedural aspects. That is with respect to non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, irregular availment of tax, or any of the procedural aspects. He shall quantify and communicate to the taxable person. Look, you gave your sale register, you gave your purchase register. On the basis of this, you have violated with your these particular aspects. Taxable person choose to respond for deviations not noted by the person. Now what will happen? I being a person, I'll write back to the officer saying that, officer, what you have noted, absolutely I don't agree with you because these are my reasons. There is one question, Sridhar. Compounding, please clarify the calculation quantum applied for compounding by commissioner. Yes, Sridhar, I'll take this particular question. Let me finish this session and I'll come back to that particular aspect of compounding of offense. Notice, Sridhar, I'll take care of that. We will finish off this discussion and we'll come back to that one. Now, this process, when I get a letter, I'll respond back to the officer saying that, sir, these are the points which you have noted. I don't agree with you. Then finally, what will happen? The officer, he will invoke your demand recovery provisions, whereby he'll issue something called a show cause notice, saying that, look, as per the provisions of section 73 or as per the provisions of section 74, I will recover the tax from you on account of various grounds. This is what happens with respect to my adjudication process. So friends, keep in mind, when I say adjudication, this is a point, this is a matter where my proper officer sent a communication that he has some issue with my tax compliance. I have responded back. Looking into my communication, this gentleman again framed a set of points and he says, look, this is a show cause notice, why this amount should not be recovered under section 73 or 74 or any of the provisions. This is how entire my adjudication process starts. To start with, first and foremost, adjudicating authority. Now, examination, final, please be prepared. Please be prepared. Can a definition for 3 marks be asked? Answer is definitely a big yes. And this is one of that definition which you can expect in your examination. Be prepared. A theory question for adjudication authority, 3 marks. What is adjudicating authority? Means an authority appointed or authorized to pass any order or decision under this act, but does not include the CBAC, RA, that is revisional authority, authority for advance ruling, appellate authority for advance ruling, appellate authority or the appellate tribunal, or authority referred in 171, which is dealt with your anti-profiteering. Examination, very simple question, very simple question. Just keep in mind that adjudicating authority means authority. In the name itself, there is an authority. Who is the authority? Who is appointed? If he is appointed, he'll call adjudicating authority, or authorized. If he is not appointed, he has been authorized for what? To pass an order or a decision. Order, confirming the tax due. Decision is of opinion that you are supposed to pay this particular tax. So, adjudicating authority means an authority or officer appointed or authorized, an authority appointed or authorized to pass an order or a decision under this act. Please read carefully, but does not include examination. A theory question can be expected from this, but does not include all these parties. Who all? CBIC. CBIC is a board. CBIC is a board who frames the rules and regulations. They cannot be an authority. Revisional authority. Revisional authority, it is nothing but a authority which is constituted where they review the decisions. I'll give an example. In an organization, whenever a policy is framed, before it goes to the CEO or the board, there is a revision body, like management board appoints a team called revision authority who reviews before it comes for a decision. Similarly, principal commissioner or a commissioner could be a review authority. Why? If there is a subordinate called joint commissioner, additional commissioner, any decision of joint commissioner, additional commissioner, revision authority is a principal commissioner. Similarly, superintendent, assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner. For these three, my joint commissioner or additional commissioner will be a revisional authority. So revisional authority is nothing but a delegation of powers who can review the subordinate authority, who can review the work of a subordinate. So in case of a revisional authority, a principal commissioner or a commissioner could be a revisional authority, or a joint commissioner or an additional commissioner could be a revisional authority. Why revisional authority? For delegation of power for review of the decisions. Next, authority of advanced ruling. I believe you have read this advanced ruling. Wherever there is an element of doubt when we file an application to this authority, they are called advanced authority for advanced ruling. They are not called adjudicating authority. Next, appellate authority for advanced ruling. Appellate authority for advanced ruling means this authority who decides the decision of advanced ruling authority. This also is not adjudicating authority. Then appellate authority, appellate who decides, who looks into the cases at a higher level. They also doesn't form of your adjudicating authority. Then appellate tribunal, and this AA. Please keep in mind these two parties are as good as your helm of affairs who decides the case which is settled by the lower level. So appellate authority or appellate tribunal, they don't also form part of my adjudicating authority. And authority referred in your anti-profiting. Any person who has been adjudged as an anti-profiting authority, they also does not come into my adjudicating authority. Examination, this is one important theory question where they will say a decision of kindly confirm a decision or passed by advanced ruling authority. Can it be appealed to a high court? Can it be called as an adjudicating authority? Answer, we will say an advanced ruling passed by authority of advanced ruling AAR shall not be construed as an adjudicating authority as per the definitions of the GST law. Accordingly, the appeal shall not lie to the High Court. This is how we decide our examples on the basis of this definition. So examination point of view, friends, this term called advanced ruling is of very, very important. Very, very important. Next, we move on to our next definition. Let me just check any questions are there. Yeah, so far no questions are there. We will continue with our discussion. Next, appellate authority means the authority appointed or authorized to hear appeals as referred in 107. Now, just keep in mind, adjudicating authority means the low level, the basic level, standard level, who initiated the dispute. Just keep in your back of mind the fellow or the officer who initiated a dispute with the assessee, with a tax person. That fellow is called adjudicating authority. Now, whenever there is a dispute, what I have to do, like a simple example, when two kids are fighting, generally the kids will go to the next sibling who is higher in age. If the matter is not settled, from there it will go to the parents. Even at the parents level it is not settled, then they'll go to someone who is called a mentor. Same way, first stage is my adjudicating authority. Let me put into Excel so that you can clearly understand. My first stage is adjudicating authority. My second stage appellate authority. Means when I have a dispute, from this stage I am traveling to the next stage. So this is called my appellate authority. Next, appellate tribunal. This is the next level, means the GST appellate tribunal. So I'll call this as stage 3. Stage 3, appellate tribunal. Please just follow this. Again, I'm saying it is a theory which is required for you to have back of your mind. Once you get into the corporate world, you need to know all these aspects where there are existing matters to be dealt with. Next is your assessment. Assessment means determination of tax liability under this act, which is includes self-assessment, reassessment. Please keep in mind, assessment is done only by adjudicating authority. The next level, none of the people will do this particular assessment. Next, authorized representative. Just need to have understanding that he is a person who represents the assessee. Commissioner, we know that. Revisional authority, authority appointed or authorized for review of decisions, orders referred under 108. Now, as of today, this revisional authority, principal commissioner, commissioner, joint commissioner, additional commissioner. These are the 4 people per day. So, friends, first we start with the stage 1 called appeals to appellate authority. So, we are talking about adjudicating authority. I have received a show cause notice, and that was confirmed as an order at stage 1. So stage 1, there was an order served. Against the assessee. So if I'm not happy with this order, what I will do, I'll go to appeal. So my first appeal lies at appellate authority. My first appeal lies at my appellate authority. So that is what they're saying. So if at all, you're a person who have been aggrieved by a decision or order passed by adjudicating authority, then you have to file an appeal. With whom? With this appeals to authority, appellate authority. How long? Within 3 months from the date on which the said decision or order is communicated. So it says that I can file my appeal to adjudicating authority within a period of 3 months. Now, it is important to understand my 3 months starts from the date of communication. What do you understand by communication? I receive an order from the adjudicating authority. The day when I have received, from there 3 months shall be counted. 100% of the time we get the orders passed using a register post acknowledgement due, where there is a record with the postal authority when this order has been received. In case if I fail to apply this appeal within a period of 3 months, I'll be given a condonation by a period of 1 month. So if I have to file an appeal, I have to file within 3 months. If I fail to file an appeal within 3 months, there is a condonation of 1 month which is given. Again, just understand as a theory for your career point of view. Examination, as I said, the term appellate authority is very important. Next, this particular appellate authority, I file my application. Now, this is point where my value addition comes. I'll take 2 to 3 minutes of your time to explain what is a value addition comes here in this particular process. I file my appeal. Now, when I file an appeal, I cannot just go to the officer and say, sir, I don't agree with what adjudicating authority has done. What I will do, I'll give my written representation. My written representation will be filled in this particular form called APL 01, which I have to file electronically. Now, friends, this particular form is nothing but a form which is having details of what is that I have to say. Like this particular officer has raised this particular allegation. I don't agree with this particular allegation. Now, why don't you agree? Now, these are the points which is causing. Like input tax credit, he says I'm not eligible for. Now, why am I eligible for? Look, I have having a proper documents for availing input tax credit. Have you given this evidence to the authority concerned? I'll say yes, Lord. I have given the information to the authority concerned. Okay, if you have given, why he has not taken into cognizance? Now we have to establish all those aspects. So you can see my screen where this is my form called appeal authority. In this, I'll draw attention to a couple of key areas where your value addition comes when you do your representation matters. There is something called statement of facts and grounds of appeal. These are the 2 areas where your value addition comes in your representation matters. Where you will say statement of facts. What happened? What question asked by the adjudicating authority? What answer I have given? Based on my answer, what did he communicate it? That comes in my statement of facts. Next is your ground of appeal. Friends, this is the utmost area where you have to be very careful. In grounds of appeal, I will put across to the adjudicating authority in writing. Look, for this question, what was asked by this particular gentleman, these are the points. What is the provision, GST law? What is it I have understood? What was the circular which has come in strength of my understanding? Or what is the notification which has come in terms of my understanding? This particular input tax I have taken how on the basis of a expert opinion. Look, this is opinion my professional colleague has given. On the relying on that opinion, I have taken input tax credit. Have you communicated to the department? Yes, this is my on the day so and so date. I have communicated to the department. I'm taking my input tax credit. All your particular things you're going to make in this particular grounds of appeal. Finally, prayer is as good as a simple thing. Having said all that, what do you want? I want all the allegations raised on me to be dropped. So these 3 points, 11, 12, 13, these are the 3 aspects which are important when you do your representation before the authority. Now, though you feel that you're not taking up, this is one good area of practice once you get qualified as a chartered accountant and you pick up income tax or indirect tax as a matter of your appeal. Your entire valuation comes by virtue of this drafting. One, legal drafting. Second, quoting all the relevant case laws when you are presenting to the officer concerned. So here, one more thing we need to understand that when I am filing an appeal, there is something called there is a pre-deposit. No appeal shall be unless the appellant has paid. Now, this is something called pre-deposit. Means when I file an appeal, there is an expectation that I need to pay some amount before I file an appeal. What is that? I have to pay all the sum, whatever I have admitted. Now, when there is an allegation raised on me by virtue of a show cause notice or an order, whatever amounts were not in my favor, I admit that it has to be paid, I will pay. And 10% of the remaining amount of tax in dispute. Now, examination, another theory question you can expect from this particular entire chapter. There are 3. One, adjudicating authority. Second, who can decide matter and what is the stages of appeal. Third, pre-deposit. These are the 3 matters what you can expect in your examination. So in terms of pre-deposit, what is a pre-deposit? When there is a dispute, the tax officer has done the audit and said, overall, you have not paid the tax, you have short paid tax, you have defaulted in compliance with the procedural aspects, you have taken irregular availment of input tax credit. He says that 8 lakhs is the amount on which you have to pay tax. Now, assuming I have not admitted anything, 10% of 8 lakhs, that is 80,000. 80,000 I have to pay as a pre-deposit along with my application. Only then my application should be accepted. Now, if you ask, so why is that pre-deposit is required? Why should I pay when I don't admit for 8 lakhs? The answer here is, government says, look, let me take the cases only when there is a seriousness. For every 10,000, 100 rupees, whatever the tax disputes are there, if everyone comes to the department for appeal, there is no end of my appeals. So I want to take up only those genuine cases where assessee is serious to fight. We also want to understand department has done a allegated representation or allegations which are not withstanding with the GST provisions. Those cases only we would like to take. That is the reason we want to have a pre-deposit. Can I pay pre-deposit using my electronic credit ledger? Answer is yes, you can pay using your electronic credit ledger. So examination, you can expect one theory question on this particular backdrop where quantification of pre-deposit would be asked. Next, moving on. Appeal before appellate authority, at times department is not satisfied. Now here, is that only the registered person will go for appeal? Answer is no. There could be a possibility that appeal can be filed even by the department. Why department will go for an appeal? Because department feels that they're not happy with the decision. They are not happy with the order passed by one of their officer. Probably there is a compromise. Probably officer is not educated or he has a difference of opinion. All these matters shall call where department also can go for an appeal against the order of a adjudicating authority. Department can file a review application or appeal with the adjudicating the appellate authority. Now, this particular appeal or review application, this is as good as they're saying that please look into the decision passed by the lower authority. higher authority. Now, this is being communicated to the higher authority. I feel that so-and-so superintendent or so-and-so joint commissioner, assistant commissioner, the order what they passed is not as per the law. Where department is saying to the appellate authority. Now, this hierarchy we will understand little while. Now, who can make a representation? Commissioner on his own motion or upon a request from a SGST or CGST officer. Now, commission upon his motion. Now, it is nothing but when commissioner, he himself personally thinks that this is a fit case where we have to appeal with the department. Otherwise, everyone comes for this particular case law and we will lose the particular case. Not to have that scenario, they may go for an appeal. Then, okay. 3 months is the time limit in case of my taxable person. 6 months is the time limit in case of a department. This is what we need to understand. Pre-deposit required by a registered taxable person. No pre-deposit if the appeal is being filed by the department. Next, what is the process? Appellate authority, whenever there is an appeal file, what he will do, he will follow the natural principles of justice. He'll call for a hearing. He'll verify the documents what we have given. He will see what details noted by the adjudicating authority. Based on those things, he is going to set the matter decided. Now, this particular order shall be passed by a person called appellate authority. Now, this particular order, which is passed by appellate authority, we technically call OIA, called order in appeal. Order in appeal means whatever adjudicating authority, show cause notice or order is passed, order in original that will be called. This is called order in appeal. In appeal, I have decided this is a matter settled. That's the reason they call order in appeal. The original order given, we will say order in original. So this order passed by the appellate authority we call as order in appeal. This order in appeal may confirm what was there what was confirmed by adjudicating authority, may slightly modify or set aside that particular order. This is what is going to happen when there is a decision made by the adjudicating authority. Now, if there is any enhancement of fine or liability, unless this opportunity of being heard is given, there shall not be increase in your liability in the process of my appellate authority. Now, this is all theoretical. I'll quickly jump to important aspects which are required from your career point of view. Okay, this is again all procedural. Now, when an order has been passed, this shall be communicated to the person who has filed an appeal and also a person called respondent. I'll come back to this APL 01 to show you what is that they are talking about. Look at here. When I'm filing this particular form, APL 01, see, designation and address of the officer who has passed the order. This fellow will be called as your respondent. Date of communication. Now, when you have received this particular order, because 3 months from that particular date, there's something called name of authorized representative. They want to understand you as a company, you are going to appoint your CEO, CFO or any operation manager as a representative or advocate or a chartered accountant, cost accountant, whom you want to send as a legal representative. And case under dispute, what is the details? Is it input tax credit? Is it refund? Is it non-payment of taxes? What is that? It is being discussed. So I'll explain in detail. So here, important aspect is officer who is passing this order. Based on that, they will say that to whom I have to send back after this matter has been settled. So this is a purpose where they say once the order is settled, it will be given to the fellow who has passed the original order and also the jurisdictional commissioner. This is what they say. Now, once an order is served, if that order is not appealed, that is the finality. That is the finality. Means appellate authority, what they have decided, that matter stands as a final matter until and unless either the appellant or the department, either of these two parties, go for a further appeal. So friends, here understand that we have started with the basic clause, adjudicating authority. From adjudicating authority, if this person has filed has given something called order. I call OIO, order in original. When this particular order is served, I'm not happy. I'll go for a next level called Appellate authority. The order served here, I call as OIA, order in appeal. This is my second stage where order has come to my hand. This is my second stage. Now, appeals, this is what I was trying to make you understand. If there is a decision or order, which is given, again, I have to file an order against in an appeal. If this order is served by a additional or joint commissioner. If my adjudicating authority is additional commissioner or a joint commissioner, then my appeal lies with a commissioner. Who is a higher authority in the rank? Commissioner. So if I have received a show cause notice from an inspector, which was confirmed as an order by a additional commissioner, joint commissioner, the person who can hear this matter is only a commissioner. Reason, next to additional commissioner, joint commissioner, I have a commissioner. This is my hierarchy. Next, if my order on which I am going to file an appeal is by a person who is a deputy or assistant commissioner or a superintendent, then my appeal lies to a next person called joint commissioner. Not below joint commissioner. Means joint commissioner, additional commissioner, commissioner. Any of these three people can hear the matter where my order is passed either by a deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner. Again, friends, this is from your career point of view. You have to understand. Once you get qualified and get into the corporate world, this hierarchy is something which you have to know as a basic principles of natural justice. Someone should know where the appeal is lying, whom you have to file this particular matter with. Next, powers of revisional authority. Now this is authority where, as I said, once a matter has been settled, this revisional authority, like the previous slide, I'll just travel to previous slide. Yeah. This particular revisional authority has an authority to revise any of these orders. Why? They feel that something went wrong grossly. In that particular scenario, this revisional authority is appointed, who is consisting of a principal commissioner or commissioner in case order is passed by additional commissioner, joint commissioner in case the order is passed by an assistant commissioner or superintendent. So examination, again, I would say not that it will be tested. Only from your career point of view, you need to understand. So this is my hierarchy of revisional authority. What these people will do whenever an order is passed, when they feel that this order is not as per the law, these people have a right to rectify the order by passing this particular revisional order. 6 months is the time limit, and where they'll give you a particular opportunity of being heard to the other party before deciding this particular matter. I'll skip this particular RA because it's procedural in nature. I'll go to the next matter, which is important. Yes, this is the next matter called Appellate tribunal. Means adjudicating authority is over. I didn't get a favorable thing. Went to the next level, Appellate authority. Nothing happened. Again, that is an unfavorable order. What is the next recourse for me? Appellate tribunal. Now, this is one important area where majority of the times, matters do get settled under the law. Reason. Let me come back to my Excel. This particular stage called stage 1, department officers are posted to decide the matters. Stage 2, appellate authority, again here also department officer posted for hearing the matters. 100% of the time, 100% cases, it so happens that matters at adjudicating authority, matters at appellate authority, majority of the cases stands in favor of the revenue. Appellate tribunal is one area where all the matters of OIA shall be referred to appellate authority. And this tribunal consists of two fantastic people called judicial technical. Now, this is a great combination where matters do get settled impartially. There are two people, we call them as a member. Please keep in mind, when we talk about tribunal matters, the person who hears the matters, we call that person as a member. This particular member is a judicial member or a technical member. Judicial member who comes from a high court, who comes from a Supreme Court, a retired judge of a Supreme Court, a retired judge of a high court, or a magistrate court. These are the people who get represented as a judicial. Now, these are the people who do the interpretation. They look into the facts of the case before settling the matters. Technical member, this person usually happens to the principal commissioner or a commissioner over a period of hierarchy, revenue secretary or secretary of finance minister. These are the people of high stature from CBSE who come as a technical member. Technical member, very strong in the tax matters. Judicial member, very strong on the natural principles of the interpretation of the law. A combination of this sits in my tribunal, where majority of the time we get a favorable, or I would say unbiased judgment at this stage. And there also possibility that there is a single member bench or higher bench. Again, we use a term called bench. What is a bench? It is just referring to a panel where the forum or authority sits. Usually we say, whenever a matter is referred to tribunal, today there is a single bench judge, today there is a three-member bench judge. Generally they say that this particular bench is a position which is held by the members in charge. So in tribunal, there could be a single member bench or there will be a three-member bench. We will see who is the three-member bench. Proceedings in tribunal are similar to a magistrate court or a civil court, where all the natural principles of your court will be taken care, where there is a code of conduct, what dress code, etc., what language you have to use. There we have to say my lord when we present our case. This is what the difference in your tribunal matters. Now, constitutional structure. Now it is a tribunal. There are two tribunal as of today. Just again theory. National tribunal under central jurisdiction, state tribunal under state jurisdiction. Tribunal, there are two particular tribunal, two type tribunal. One, central government control, second, state government control. Central government I may call as a national or regional. A state government I will call as a state bench or a area bench. This is the two mechanism which is there. Now, how do I know what matters to be appealed? Where should I appeal? There is a bifurcation of jurisdiction among these benches. What they say, any tax matters where there is a dispute, in relation to place of supply, that shall lie with national or regional bench. Any matters other than this particular place of supply shall lie with the state or area bench. So just keep in mind, tax matters revolving issue with place of supply, it goes to national or regional bench. Any matter other than that, it goes to my state or area bench. Again, also one point in importance, this particular matters, any matter which is settled, it goes to the Supreme Court for further appeal. Any matter settled by state or area bench, this goes to my High Court as a further matter of appeal. So this is one point of distinction. So friends, whenever we talk about tribunal, central jurisdiction, state jurisdiction. Central, I call national bench or regional bench. State, I call state bench or area bench. Any matters, tax dispute in relation to place of supply, it goes to my central bench, that is national or regional. Any matters other than place of supply goes to my state or area bench. In case, if I don't get a relief, if I have to file an appeal, all the matters settled by national regional bench, straight away it goes to Supreme Court. Any matter settled by state or area bench goes directly to my High Court. Any matters from High Court straight away can be appealed to Supreme Court. So this is my hierarchy with which my cases or matters shall be settled. Now, constitution of a bench. Appeal for decision in national bench shall lie directly to Supreme Court. This we have discussed. Now, structure, how the structure is going to be in case of a center. I call a national bench or regional bench. There is no difference. I call this way, where there are three members in a regional bench, 2 members in a national bench. Technical member center, technical member state in case of a national bench. In case of a regional bench, 3 members are there. Judicial, technical. Always weightage is given to technical member. Reason, technical member is very strong in the law. Judicial member is strong in the decisions of the court of law. Similarly, my state tribunal, state bench, area bench. State bench, 3 members. Judicial, technical. Area bench, judicial, technical. 3 people are there. Exception only in my case of national bench, there are 2 people. Technical member, technical state. This is only one differentiation. Now, any matter which comes for hearing, there can be a 2-member bench where there is a president who says, okay, usually 3 members have to decide on the basis of a case. If any of the member is not available, with the permission of a president, 2-member bench can hear on a matter. And also, if you go to a tribunal, there is a single member judge. This single member bench comes only where there are tax matters whose value of dispute is less than 5 lakhs. If there is a matter which is less than 5 lakhs, a single member bench can hear those matters. So most of the case, people who have exposure to tribunal, we will hear this single member and 3-member bench. Powers of a tribunal or CPC provisions are not applicable, but they follow the natural principles of justice for the purpose of listening the matters. What they will do, they will summon for the attendance of a person when they want to hear. When there is evidence gathered by anti-evasion, they will call, okay, let that person be introduced or presented to take on oath whether this particular matter has been properly brought into the matter of dispute. And also any documents which are matter of dispute, they also call for those documents before deciding the matters. Now, appeal by the SSC. Now, when I am filing an appeal to appellate tribunal, what I can appeal? Orders appealable is if I am aggrieved, all the matters which are settled by appellate authority or regional authority, I can go for an appeal. What is the time limit? Within 3 months. Remember, my appellate authority, 3 months. Appellate tribunal, 3 months from the date of communication of the order. Tribunal can condone if I have not filed my appeal within 3 months. Tribunal, 3 months is the time limit given. In case of my appellate authority, 1 month is the time limit of condonation. So in case of this, 3 months is the time limit. My form, like GST APL 01 in case of appellate authority, GST APL 05, this is procedural. No need to remember the form name, just for your understanding. But now, what does the appeal tribunal do? When the matter is heard, this particular appellate authority, they may refuse to admit an appeal when I file an application where my value of dispute is less than 50,000. Now, tribunal says, look, I don't want to hear any matter where the tax dispute is less than 50,000. Further, when I file an appeal, there is something called a nominal fee. Now, just keep in mind, like a high court, generally when we file cases with high court, there is a fee which we pay as a high court fee. Similarly, tribunal also, there is a fee. Depending on the amount of case, every lakh, 1,000 is the amount of fee I have to pay, subject to a maximum of 25,000. So if there is a dispute of 10 lakhs, on 10 lakhs, 1,000 into 10, 10,000. I have to pay something called as a tribunal fee of 10,000. Assuming if the matter is of 50 lakhs, for every 1 lakh, 1,000. So 50 into 1,000, 50,000. The maximum ceiling is 25,000. So along with my application for appeal, I have to pay this tribunal fees of 25,000. Now, tribunal, what they will do, they will hear the matter. They will give you a favorable order, they will give you an unfavorable order. While this one important aspect we need to keep in mind is when they are referring the matter back. Now, this is a technical thing. Tribunal revert back the matter to whom? Appellate authority or this revisional authority or original authority, adjudicating authority. With a direction, what they will do, please look into the matter again. You have failed to understand the matter. This happens only in case of your tribunal. Only in case of a tribunal. And 3 adjournments. If I am not in a position to appear for the matter, 3 times they will give you an adjournment, provided there is a reason why I am not attending the matter. Now, Examination, as I said, friends, this is another aspect which is important. Here, 20%, when I'm filing an appeal to appellate tribunal, my amount of pre-deposit shall be 20% of the dispute. This is a typographical error. This 10% should be read as 20%. In case of appellate authority, 10% is the amount. In case of a tribunal, 20% is my pre-deposit. Yes. Appellate authority, 10%. In case of a tribunal, 20% is my pre-deposit. So what will happen? Already I paid 10% at the stage of appellate authority. In this case, I'll pay the balance 10% as a pre-deposit. Now, next point comes here. Sir, I got a favorable order. I have made a pre-deposit. Now, isn't it unjust on my part? My money I have paid all along till the matter has been settled. I have kept my financial burden with pre-deposit. What will happen? This particular provision says, don't worry, I'll give you a pre-deposit along with the interest under section 56. That interest is currently 9%. From the date you have paid till the date of refund, you will get an entitlement of refund of 9% under section 56. This is one tax beneficial provision. Now, this is important. Authorized representative. Whenever we are having a matter to be appealed, there is a list of people who can appear. That is your employee, relative, advocate, chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, or GST practitioner. These are the people who can appear before the matters, before the authority concerned to hear on these matters. And the people who are not authorized to become an authorized representative, people who have been dismissed from the government, people who have been convicted for an offense by the state or local authority, person who is found guilty of misconduct by the authority concerned, person who has been adjudged insolvent. These are the people who have not been authorized to appear as an authorized representative. Now, appeal to High Court, another 2 slides, then we'll go to our previous discussion on compounding of fees. Appeals to High Court, please keep in mind, my High Court is not a fact-finding authority. My High Court is an authority who's going to check the question of law. Always keep in mind, High Court is not a person who can do a fact-finding. This particular fact-finding happens only till tribunal. Once I cross the tribunal, I'll come to High Court. So let me come back to my Excel file to explain you. Stage 3, I have not got a favorable order. I'll go to stage 4 of appeals, that is to my High Court. Now, at appellate authority, 10% is my pre-deposit. At appellate tribunal, 20% is my pre-deposit. Now, finally, I'll land up in stage 4. All fact finding of the case happens here. Question of law alone gets tested in my High Court. That means to say, example, there is a dispute, irregular availment of ITC. If this says, why irregular? If it is a matter saying that deficiency in document as per rule 36, or if the matter says ineligibility of ITC plant and machinery, that is your works contract. Now here I call this as a fact finding. I call this as a question of law. Please understand. I call irregular availment. Input tax credit taken, your invoice is not there, your invoice is not original copy, your invoice does not contain all the details as per rule 36. All these are the basic things where I call it as a fact finding. Only till the stage of appeal I can go with these matters. If this is a matter of question of law, like example, I have purchased a lift, I call that it is a plant and machinery. In my books of accounts, my lift has been classified as plant and machinery. GST officer says, no, it is not a plant and machinery. This is your works contract, building, section 17, subsection 5, ineligible. Now, because it is a fact of law, I'll go to High Court for an appeal. So friends, when we talk about these appeal matters, only those matters which are revolving on the basis of your question of law, I call as a matter appealable to High Court. Matters decided state or we have discussed this point. Appeals to High Court are to be filed within a period of 180 days. What is the time limit? In case of Appellate Authority, 3 months. In case of Tribunal, 3 months. Only in case of High Court, it is not 3 months, it is 180 days. Examination, just keep in mind. 3 months means absolute 3 months. 180 days, it is exactly number of days. This is just a point of difference you need to keep in mind. Now, this form APL 08, question of law, and yeah. High Court, when I file an appeal, they frame a question of law and they hear only on that particular matter. And when I go for an appeal to High Court, entire my amount of demand has to be paid unless High Court gives a direction to stay. If High Court doesn't give us the direction to stay, all the amount in order will be recovered by the authority concerned. Last and final, friends, we come to the slide called appeals to Supreme Court. This appeals to Supreme Court, my cases of national bench or regional bench comes to Supreme Court, or any matters from Supreme Court comes to High Court. Any matters from High Court comes to Supreme Court, where High Court says that this is a matter fit for appeal, where it comes to Supreme Court on the basis of confirmation of a High Court. Now, please keep in mind all the matters, unless I make the payment of due order as per the order, it is deemed that it is not paid. When I file an application with High Court, when I file an application with Supreme Court, they give a stay. Since the matter is dispute and it is at High Court, the matter, whatever demand is a stay on that particular matter. There will be a citation relief given to that particular demand. And finally, there are 3-4 matters saying that you cannot file an appeal for few orders. What is that? Whenever the GST Council given a recommendation based on the amount of value of dispute, don't file an appeal. Don't burden your officer, don't burden the High Court or Supreme Court till a certain monetary amount. So on the basis of a board direction, recommendations of the council, the appeals cannot be filed by a CGST officer. Now further, when appeal is not filed on the basis of an amount, it doesn't mean that all the cases, similar issues cannot be filed. Only based on the amount of ceiling, officer will abstain from not filing of a cases. Now this particular example, in one scenario, I have taken input tax credit erroneously for a sum of rupees, say 1 lakh. And I have gone for an appeal. Somewhere I have got a favorable order. The department does not go to a High Court or does not go to Supreme Court based on the amount. They say only matters above 10 lakhs should go to High Court. Otherwise, don't go. If a tribunal gives me a favorable decision, I cannot say because tribunal has given a favorable decision. In any other case where similar issue is there, amount is more than 10 lakhs, I cannot say, look, in that case, government has not gone for an appeal, it is a favorable decision. So this is what it particular confirms. Finally, whenever there is a appellate tribunal or court which is hearing the matters, they'll keep in mind the restrictions casted on the government officer, why they have not gone for an appeal. Just because government has not gone for an appeal, it doesn't mean that courts have to give a favorable order to the assessee concerned. So this is the last slide with respect to your appeals and revisional authority. Now friends, we'll come back to one question which is asked by many of the friends in relation to this particular compounding of fees. Compounding of fees. Compounding of offence generally is taken up in the cases where the matter has been decided in relation to section 132. Please recollect your section 132 where we have discussed that all the cases, all the matters where severe offences are caused, where the amount of demand is higher than 5 crores. The amount of demand is higher than 5 crores. So those cases where tax, interest, fee, penalty, when everything is imposed, now assuming 530 lakhs, I'm putting in lakhs for convenience in lakhs. When I say 530 lakhs, it is 5 crore 30 lakhs. Now interest, etc., all these amounts get calculated. Assuming penalty is also levied of 530 lakhs. Now here in compounding of offences, what will happen is the commissioner, when someone has come forwarded for a compounding of offence, he can give a condonation. He can give a condonation, means relaxation. When an amount confirmed by the commissioner is paid, entire matter is I would say, when the matter has been referred to commissioner under this compounding of offence, section 138, when commissioner has admitted the application and he quantifies an amount, if that amount has been paid by the SSC, then it says that entire matter has been settled and no more amount, no more interest, late fee, penalty, fine, etc. is payable. Now, what is the amount of compounding? Minimum, when commissioner is taking a call, minimum 50% of the tax or 10,000, higher off. Similarly, higher off. Here, what is my lower limit? Here, my lower limit is 50% of tax or 10,000. Here, assuming my amount quantified is 530 lakhs. Now, this 50% of the tax, 530 into 50%, 265 lakhs or 10,000. Higher of these two, maximum of these two, I'll say 265 lakhs. This is in lakhs, just keep in mind lakhs. Now, definitely 265 lakhs is a minimum amount which he has to give. What is the upper limit? How much he can go? 150% of the tax amount. This into 150%. Or 30,000. Higher of these two, again 795 lakhs. So friends, assuming for a moment interest comes around say 80 lakhs, fees quantified, assuming it is 0, my entire amount payable is 1140 lakhs. Rather, when I go for a compounding of an offence, my commissioner says you pay 795 lakhs, you get a relief. So instead of paying 1140 lakhs under this particular provision of GST law, section 138, if I pay this sum of 795 lakhs, my entire matter gets settled over here. So this is my answer to Jay and Sridhar who have raised this question. Hope I have clarified your question on compounding of offence. There is one question from Jay, whether such person. Yeah, Jay has one question. So when we reach to the state bench or area bench, if issue is other than place of supply, whether to reach, yes Jay, see by default, there's one question from Jay Srivastav. So when we will go to the tribunal, that is state bench or area bench, any matter Jay, which is not revolving on a matter of place of supply, by default it goes to state bench. Only in case of a place of supply, it goes to my national bench. A question. So why is that national bench and state bench has come? I'll give you the background of this. If you recollect advanced ruling, if you heard about advanced ruling, most of the advanced ruling, there is a dispute. One advanced ruling says you should avail ITC. Some other advanced ruling says, no, you cannot take ITC. So there is a dichotomy. There is a difference of opinion. Of supply, they don't want to have a dispute. Place of supply is covered under IGST law. Central government want to have a hold with respect to this matter. For that reason, only in relation to POS, this comes to my national bench. Any matters other than that, it goes to my state or area bench. And again, if you see, my state or area bench, there is a central government officer, that is state member, and also central member. Central tax officer is a state tax officer is a. That is the reason all these cases generally goes and refers to my area bench or state bench. Hope I have answered your question, Jay. Then there is one point from Mansi. Please provide the Excel sheet which you are explaining. Definitely, Mansi. I'll do one thing. I'll this Excel file, whatever I have solved, I'll post it back to Board of Studies. They will host it on the website. Probably tomorrow you can download this particular file for your verification purpose. So friends, I have addressed all the questions, whatever is there till today, whatever questions have been posted to me. In case if there are any further questions which you feel unanswered or you want to be clarified, you can post your question with a valid email ID. I'll respond back to your email ID. And I'll take one more minute of your time before we wind up. I would recollect all my initial points which I've been talking about, saying that don't look this particular theory as just a theory. Don't look as a theory. Reason, there is enormous value addition which is going to come into an organization. You joining as a company as a professional or you getting into practice. The value of addition which you are going to get from this particular 2 sessions, offenses and penalty and appeals. You should know what is your right. You should know what I have to do, what I have not to do. When someone gives a notice, you cannot keep quiet. You should respond back to that particular notice. That is one value it comes when you respond back. You should also know what to write, what not to write, what to communicate, what time you have to communicate. So you'll know who is the person to whom I have to respond back and what is expected from him. When I've read my section 126, when I've read my section 125, I know that I have a responsibility where I can reduce my penal exposure under 126.5. So let me voluntarily write back so that I can reduce the penal provision exposure. I can increase my compliance level. And also I know which all authorities I can take up the matters when there is an appeal has to be reviewed. Is that the matter when the show cause notice comes? Can I keep quiet and confirm that this is a finality? No. You have to go for an appeal. Sir, if I lose an appeal at appellate authority or if I lose at a tribunal, should I need to keep quiet? I would say keep fighting because till the matter attains finality, you have a liberty to fight at a higher forum. And finally, what we have to learn from all these provisions, we have to read the law in between the lines and also all the transactions, you ensure that you have a documentary evidence which is collaborative and corroborative, which comes in handy along with the legal citations. You read the case laws, you read the circulars, you read the notifications where you say, I have bona fide belief relying on this, I have done this particular activity. And you communicate back to the department under section 126 subsection 5. Your intention to evade payment of tax is mitigated to the core. So friends, with this, I end my discussion for today and I thank all of you for having your patience hearing. We meet again on 2nd October to discuss further. And meanwhile, any of your questions unanswered, please post it back to me. I'll take care of these questions. So till such time, good night and goodbye.